No.
In December?
Well, nobody asked for it.
No, but where was that?
So that sounded like quite a night last night in Hartwick at the planning board.
Oh,
Don't you have enough to do for crying out loud?
oh my gosh. It's, I did that first. That was what I did first. So I have a term that I'm filling out, so.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and usually it's just like you show up and have a conversation and then go home, but it was more, yeah, with the cabins.
First, we have a couple of public hearings.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that there has been duly introduced before the Board of Representatives of the County of Otsego, New York, a local law entitled A Local Law to Amend Local Law 1 of 2017 to provide for the installment payment of eligible delinquent taxes pursuant to real property tax law section 1184. Notice is further given that the Board of Representatives will conduct a public hearing on the proposed local law in the Representatives' Chambers at the County Office Building in the Village of Cooperstown, New York on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018 at 9:50 a.m., at which time all persons interested will be heard. The location of the public hearing is accessible to persons with mobility impairment. Copies of the local law are available for viewing at the Clerk of the Board's office, County Office Building, Cooperstown, New York, during regular business hours. Dated November 29, 2018, Carol D. McGovern, Clerk of the Board of Representatives, Otsego County, New York.
Any comments on local law G of 2018, proposed amendments?
Yes, I'd like to comment on this law. I'm here today because Maria Jello's home was taken a number of years ago. We protested this. No such offers were made at that time. Now, many counties will accept the money up until the day of the auction. Why do we need to get people into this when they come to you and they want to pay? This year, in this room, not long ago, we had an elderly man come before the auction trying to get his place back, and you just wouldn't do it. So coming and taking payments and getting people swept into this, that's a nice afterthought. But in the meantime, you have added to the homeless problem and financial deficits of elders here in this county. And I think it's wrong. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, declare the hearing closed. Second public hearing, local law H 2018.
Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that there has been duly introduced before the Board of Representatives of the County of Otsego, New York, a local law entitled A Local Law Declaring the Opioid Epidemic and its Effects on the County of Otsego a Public Nuisance, and establishing a cost recovery procedure for the county's expenditures incurred in providing services related to the opioid epidemic. Notice is further given that the Board of Representatives will conduct a public hearing on the proposed local law in the Representatives' Chambers at the County Office Building in the Village of Cooperstown, New York on Wednesday, December 5th, 2018 at 9:50 a.m., at which time all persons interested will be heard. The location of the public hearing is accessible to persons with mobility impairment. Copies of the local law are available for viewing at the Clerk of the Board's office, County Office Building, Cooperstown, New York during regular business hours. Dated November 29, 2018, Carol D. McGovern, Clerk of the Board of Representatives, Otsego County, New York.
Anyone wishing to comment on that?
I'll comment on that one too. It's about time that we did something about this. If you saw the news today, you'll see that our much honored president is taking a step forward in this. A big step, and he's saying this poison's coming from China, and we need to step up and stop it. And this opioid epidemic, it's unbelievable here in Otsego County. Just because maybe I know more people here, but I see the detrimental, the horrible things that are happening and the deaths from the fentanyl particularly. So everything that we can do to stop that from coming into our county, including maybe legal medical use, needs to be replaced with something else. We need to look into that. Thank you for supporting a law that will cut down on the use. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I feel
Pete this morning. A very good friend of mine yesterday told me he has a grandson in a coma that they have taken off life support, and probably by tomorrow he'll be gone. 25-year-old. The same thing, the same sad story. We can't do enough. And thank you for passing this law today.
Anyone else? I will declare this hearing closed and open the regular meeting of the county board. Roll call of members.
Frazier? Here. Barwell? Here. Clark? Here. Stammel? Kennedy?
Present.
Obracker?
Here.
Bliss?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
McCarty?
Here.
Wilbur?
Here.
Koenig?
Here.
Martini? Here. Lappin?
Here.
Shannon?
Here.
Please rise if you're able to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I'm sure many of you know, today is a National Day of Mourning for the death of former President Bush, and so I'd like to observe a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. Privilege of the floor. Yes, sir.
My name is Edward Doyad. I live in the hamlet of Welcome in the town of New Lisbon. The first thing I'd like to do is thank the County Highway Department for going back to the old ways, kind of. I did some of that last year. This year they're doing even more so, it seems. Mixing a little bit of salt with the sand. Use the sand on the roads. You know, you don't have to put all of this salt. It's detrimental to things. Sometimes you learn your lesson from history. Go back. What works, works. And that obviously works. You have the traction on the hills. I know up by Welcome, coming up Center Hill and everything. And a lot of other spots. Hemlock Hill coming up over towards Hartwick and whatnot. Salt provides absolutely no traction. It makes a greasy, slippery mess, and without the sand in there to supplement it, you don't have the traction. So thank the county highway department for going back to the old ways, the ways that work. Another object I'd like to bring up is, they complained about the, the gas pipeline and everything like that for Oneonta, for supplementing the energy there. You need something in addition to the green energy. You have to have base. You have to have something to see you through until you can get this green energy stuff working properly. And pipeline is the safest way of doing it. You've had people here come up, complain about the trucks coming up through Hartwick and everything, delivering the compressed natural gas. Oh, you got bombs on the wheels, this and that and everything. There's so many pipelines, I don't know how many, probably literally hundreds of thousands of miles of pipelines throughout the U.S. The only time you hear about anything, the news media sensationalizes it when there's an unfortunate accident or whatever that happens. If with proper maintenance, I mean, you could take the city of New York, most major cities, Albany and everything, they all have natural gas infrastructure throughout there. People are heating their homes with it. They're using it for their stoves. It's a supplemental thing because if you have just electric for your stove, all your eggs are in one basket. Power goes out, what happens? You have nothing. You can't cook, you can't do a blessed thing. You need to do a fine mix. Now with a pipeline, plain and simple, point A to point B. Any train takes 100 trucks off the road roughly. Transporting, say you were transporting the gas or whatever. Now you take a pipeline, that takes 100 trains off the road. Pipeline is a safe, economical means of doing it, otherwise they wouldn't be doing it. All your major airports, how do you think the fuel gets to the airports for the airplanes? You could go down to Kennedy Airport, I know exactly where that pipeline runs, through Howard Beach and Old Howard Beach to get over to the airport. That's been there. I was a little kid and that was in there way before I was born. And plain and simple, it works, it's economical, and you don't have the trucks traversing the roads. Thank you for your time, and I also want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and a happy, healthy New Year.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole Dillingham. I live in Springfield Center, and I'm board president of Otsego 2000. And I'm here today to alert you to some news that we consider very big news. Some of you may have already gotten word of it yesterday, but yesterday we learned that Otsego 2000, my organization, has been fighting the compressor station expansion in Minden, New York for about 4 years. We have been urging the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, otherwise known as FERC, to consider the greenhouse gas impacts of adding capacity on the Iroquois pipeline and building new compressor stations along and expanding the compressor at Minden, just north of Van Hornsville. FERC declined all of our requests. We filed a petition for rehearing at FERC. That was denied too. We filed an appeal from that denial of rehearing in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, the Court of Appeals in Washington, D.C. that supervises FERC, claiming that refusal to consider the greenhouse gas impacts was wrong under the National Environmental Protection Act, known as NEPA, that they had a duty to consider this and other federal law precedents. Yesterday, we found out that the New York Attorney General, along with 5 other attorney generals, and I will name the states: New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Maryland, Washington State, and Oregon, and the Attorney General for the District of Columbia itself, filed a brief supporting Otsego 2000. It's called an amicus brief. It's a friend of the court brief. And it was filed on behalf of the 6 so-called amici attorney generals, agreeing that greenhouse gas impacts are a very serious threat to the country, but the New York Attorney General telling us the greenhouse gas impacts are a very big threat in our region, in our state. I'm going to just read a couple of lines from what the New York Attorney General wrote. He says, she says, and the Assistant Attorney General, Brian Blessedman, who signed this, climate change driven primarily by greenhouse gas emissions from burning of fossil fuels such as natural gas poses an existential threat to the amici states and their citizens. Within the borders of amici states, climate change is causing a host of environmental problems. And he lists loss of land due to rising seas, more frequent flooding, increased rainfall, higher tides, reduced drinking water supplies, decimation of biodiversity, overall ecosystem health impacts, increases in heat waves, insect-borne diseases, and so forth. This is what our Attorney General is saying about greenhouse gas impacts. He goes on to say that the production, processing, and transportation of natural gas is the largest industrial source of methane, a potent greenhouse gas, up to 34 times more powerful than carbon dioxide. That projects intended to increase the supply and transportation of natural gas also increase the amount of natural gas produced and consumed, with resulting environmental impacts, including greenhouse gas emissions. Pipelines and compressor stations do not operate in a vacuum. Any realistic picture of their effect on the environment must be considered, including their upstream and downstream impacts. So this is a significant development for my organization, for Otsego 2000. First time in our history that we have had the New York Attorney General weigh in to support our mission. Not only they alone, but 5 Attorney Generals joined them. This is significant. But why am I really here talking to you about a federal case and FERC and so forth? Well, because it is the New York Attorney General, and because this county is right now itself considering natural gas expansion in the town of Oneonta, right in the heart of our medical and university life. In the town of Oneonta, a gas plant is being proposed to be fed by bomb trucks 24 hours a day, half-mile from the Plains residential community. And this proposal by our IDA has not been supported by any environmental review so far. It should have been done before this proposal was even made, before the IDA even committed funds to it. They did not do an environmental review. There's been no environmental review of this gas plant in Oneonta, in the town of Oneonta, or in the city of Oneonta. And the New York Attorney General is going to care about that, because the DC guidelines that are also in place also require that any entity, a government entity or a project developer that is considering imposing significant greenhouse gas impacts must do a review of the impact of the direct impacts, right there, what's going to happen in Oneonta, the indirect impacts, which are upstream and downstream impacts, and cumulative impacts. The law under NEPA is very similar to the law in New York State. And the New York Attorney General is going to care if this county tries to do something like this without even an environmental review. You have some control over IDA. I know you don't have total control, but they ask you for funding, and occasionally you grant them funding. One member of your board sits on their board. You have got to ask them to withdraw the application for funding or write a letter stating that you do not want this grant to be granted to the IDA until an environmental review is done. And by the way, someone better be prepared to fund a complete environmental review. What do we mean by upstream? We mean how many additional fracking sites there are going to be to bring a 25% increase by bomb truck to Oneonta. We mean how much transportation emissions there will be when a truck overturns. We've had 6 accidents in our county already. We're going to have more. Oh, maybe they'll be right across our border in another county. Does that matter? No, it's an environmental impact. You have to consider it. And what about downstream impacts? Who is going to use this gas and for what purpose? And what kind of emissions will that be? I submit to you, this is a complicated process. We are not Dominion Energy or FERC. This takes time and resources and money. Do we want to proceed down a path of trying to build a gas plant in Oneonta functioning for the next 20 or 30 years to bring bomb trucks into our community? And here's another thing. You have wisely formed an energy task force. I'm not exactly sure through which committee, but I know that this county is taking reasonable steps to do what? To analyze our energy and greenhouse gas reduction needs and goals, and to propose rational solutions. I know there are meetings that have been scheduled, business leaders are coming in and so forth. Why not wait until your own task force considers if this makes sense in the town of Oneonta and the city of Oneonta? All of these briefs, our opening brief, which was filed a week ago, and the brief filed by the attorneys general is now available on the Otsego 2000 website under the environmental stewardship link. Oral argument has not been scheduled. I plan to be there for oral argument in the DC Circuit probably in the fall. My daughter is a law student now at American University. I will proudly bring her with me. We are David fighting Goliath, no doubt. But we still matter. Our region matters. We have the support of the Attorney Generals. We also have the support of National Sierra Club. They also filed an amicus brief supporting us yesterday. That brief too is on our website. Don't miss this opportunity for leadership. You can't ignore it. It's right here before our eyes. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Agello. I am a 10-year county employee and very grateful for my employment and this time that I get to speak with you. Chairman Bliss, members of the board, community people. I would like to present, first of all, my original request for a review. Signature, I had this, my original is from May 4th, 2016. So, all notarized, ready to go, whoever would like to take it. Because I know I'm not allowed beyond this. So, is Larissa Ryan in the house? No? Well, I want to thank you for that outstanding editorial on the tax foreclosures. It is quite amazing to think that even our elected officials want to bid. Now, we had an employee bid for my home, and she's still working here, plus her daughter's working here. They harassed me at my home for 14 months, and nothing was done because they thought I was stealing their property. Now, how could I steal their property when it hadn't been given to her yet? Mr. Ruffles has a grip on how hard this is. And I thank you, sir. You and I have worked together to help certain individuals. When they called me, I called you, and you stood up and you did what you could. Now, what if it had been me or you fighting over my home? Wouldn't that be quite the optics? This is no different than having employee against employee, neighbor against neighbor. And I have to tell you, Ms. Farwell, you got it correct. You work at McDonald's, you don't enter into the sweepstakes. I worked for Mr. and Sarah in New Jersey. And I'll tell you what, you did not join into any sweepstakes, and you didn't get in any reductions, because anything that smelled the least bit immoral to him was squashed immediately. Restriction should be that no employee should bid, or their family either. Because if you just limit it to the employee, they may do what Commissioner Moon did in Delaware, had his wife bid. Talk about duplicity. That is unethical. We have a position here. I do too. I'm a receptionist at the Department of Social Services. It is my mandated duty as an employee and as a human being, under God's law and man's law, to help my neighbor, not help myself to what my neighbor has. Now, I don't know all the details about this buyback program. I don't know how far in you have to be, so please excuse my ignorance. But I will tell you this. Weeks before the auction, I had the money. Weeks. Not days, not the day of the auction, weeks before the auction. And I was denied, Juliana Elliott was denied, and of course, Robert Force was denied. We had these properties for over 20 years. He had 30, I had 25. And nothing in this entire world has devastated us as the loss of our homes. To be thrown out on the street like common thieves and beggars. And I was called a lowlife and a squatter by the Bitters family. So I tell you, this is not easy to go through, but I come here every day and I honor you because I honor your position. You are the legislators. You can do this. You can change the laws, you can amend resolutions, and as Mr. Aarons had stated, and then I'm done, the gentleman sat right over there asking why he couldn't pay his taxes. His neighbor came and asked the same question we all asked. Where is that amended resolution, the local law, whatever you want to call it, that says you don't need a resolution anymore to transfer property. This is our life. We're not talking about, you know, you lost your shoe or your watch or your phone. Oh my God, this is our life. This was our life savings. And you don't care. But I think you do. Somewhere inside of you, you know what's right. Do the right thing. Negotiate with us. Speak with us in executive session. We don't want, this is public. I could tell you things that you don't want the public to know. Unless you do, then I'll be back. But we need to have a talk. Constituent to board, executive session. You don't want to give me back my home? Compensate me. That was everything I had. And if you think that people don't know that, then I have support. They want me to continue this, not just for myself, but for them as well. Because God help you the day you may find yourself in my position. And as for your raise, well, that's all right. Everybody's entitled to a little bit of money. I'm getting 2%, and you're getting 30. That's the way it goes. David, Goliath. Have a Merry Christmas, and I wish you well in the new year. God bless you. Take care.
Thank you.
Patricia Zarpa, Otsego Land Trust Executive Director and Town of Otsego resident. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here today, privilege of the floor, and this opportunity. Good morning to everyone, and Chairman Bliss. On behalf of the Otsego Land Trust, I just want to reinforce our organization's interest and ownership of the Roses Hill Road parcel, particularly because of the members who were not present at the land sale last month. And I know that there are some, you have bylaws issues and things, and there seemed to have been some confusion on all of that. I know how that goes when you work with boards and bylaws and things. So we are here, and we are here to express our sincere interest in wanting to move forward, and hoping that we can move forward in being brought back to a discussion and a vote from everyone here, whether that take place today, next week, whenever it works out for everybody. We sincerely ask the board and its members to reconsider this, and we understand that we also were the only official bid received, as we found out by attending the admin committee meeting last week. Our bid of $151,000 was based on our due diligence. We work very, very hard to have funds set aside for lands that come up that we consider are very, very important for land trust to protect and own. As many of you, some of you may not know, but we have federally forest, which is actually contiguous to this parcel. It makes perfect sense for us to own this parcel. We chose a figure $11,000 above the asking low rate price because we did some due diligence and really looking at it. Not so much in timber, because you won't be able to do a timber harvest on it for another 40 years, but for the fact that there are values that are rising in the area. And so we wanted to reflect that and be honest and good bidders to the county, so the county doesn't lose out in making some dollars. And we felt that that was a good price, and we still think that that's a very good price that would look great on the county's books as well, in terms of taking this off the budget books. You're sitting with land that you maybe don't need. And so we're hoping that it can actually be brought back. We followed with good faith the process, and the sealed bid worked well with Mr. Ruffles and Mr. Chrisman, and right now the county is sitting with a 10% deposit check that we also placed in good faith of $15,100, and so we followed the process right to the letter of the law and making sure that everything was done. So we just want to make sure that everyone here who may not have been at the November 7th meeting or didn't attend the admin meeting last week understand our commitment to this land. And, just to kind of reiterate a little bit of some of the work that we do, we had a chance to meet quite a few of you in the October meeting. You had a chance to hear us do a presentation on our conservation easement work, of which we have over 111 privately owned properties that are under conservation easement, and we are also working with our county to roll out the comprehensive agricultural plan in terms of land protection. So the other end of our spectrum in terms of our mission is protecting land that is for public service, public use, and protects our water. And so lands that we do own have to go through a rigorous criteria to make sure that it is something we want to own. And clearly, because of its location, because of the various land conservation values of this land, it clearly was of interest to us. Or help in taking a downed tree or taking care of something that's an emergency, because we manage and we raise funds for a lot of those services. So this land coming off of your responsibility would be huge. I also think we would be great watchdogs for the fact that you still are remaining with 13.5 acres of land up there with a very important utility on it that you have invested in highly, and we would be great watchdogs for that because it is our role to steward the lands, and so we would be great neighbors and great watchdogs for you. In speaking with the town of Otsego, just again in parts of our due diligence, making sure that this fit within the town of Otsego's comprehensive and plans, because this particular piece of part of land is in the town of Otsego. Part of the goals, which you don't have to get off of too far into the town of Otsego's comprehensive plan, page 5 indicates that this land would protect sensitive environmental areas, including view sheds. So it takes care of that goal. It also takes care of preserving existing patterns and use of hamlets in rural areas, so it helps to maintain the rural aspect of the community, protect historical, natural, and community rural character, promote adequate passive and active recreational opportunities, maintain natural environment and open space, and minimize visual blight, ensure drinking water quality and availability in lakes and groundwater. In speaking with the town supervisor, she expressed her support for the land trust, hopefully taking ownership of the land. So we have a lot of things we do to do due diligence, and besides placing the $15,100 of a 10% deposit, we've also gone ahead and paid to have certain things done on the land. So we have also probably accumulated another couple $1,000s of forestry, assessments and stream assessments and things on the property. So we have, in essence, paid a little bit more to that. Wanted to just basically just sum up by saying that we feel very strongly we would be good owners of the land, and we sincerely hope that the legislature that can bring this back to the table so that we can perhaps become the owners. If this were to have to go back for an RFP again, I guess I don't see how that would benefit the county necessarily. It would be more time and energy and dollars on your end, and more time and energy and dollars on our end, because we bid again, because we are truly interested in being owners of this parcel and protecting it. And one thing I did want to mention, because it was brought up a few times in some conversation, is we are not against hunting. So we're going to develop a hunting program, which we don't have yet. You have to do this properly. You have to not just, just willy-nilly say, okay, hunting's available. You've got to contact hunters. You've got to maybe do a lottery process. You've got to post and mark and be ready for the public to know that these are happening. So we clearly see hunting as a very, very important way to also protect habitat, because we are overrun with deer, we know that. We would work a program that would be a meaningful program. But just wanted to mention that as well. We want to work with you all. We hope that you can bring this to the table again for a vote. And I thank you so much for your time, and in echoing everyone else's sentiments, I certainly wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and good holidays as well. Thank you.
Dave,
Yeah.
can I direct just a quick question?
Sure.
To Pat? Pat, Pat, can you just clarify whether you purchase the property now, if that happened in 2018, or there's a new RFP and you bid again and were awarded the property? I mean, from the land trust perspective, whether now or later, there seems to be kind of this other issue of the tax rolls. And I mean, would you ever at any point with that, if you had to bid again, would you in writing give an absolute guarantee that you would continue to pay taxes? I mean, would the land trust go on record ever doing something like that?
We haven't in the past, but we can certainly, I mean, until the time is such that we ask and apply for tax exempt status, we do pay taxes until that.
Until that point happens.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have any other agreements like that, and
No.
that would be out of the ordinary to do that.
Correct.
Anyone else on speak? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Joy Sanders. I too live in Welcome, so I back everything that Mr. Doyat said previously to here. I'm here today to address the veterans problem. We have a small problem, as explained on Friday's Daily Star, and it was expanded to say that we're being harsh about Delaware County veterans riding our VA van. I'd like to expound because this is very negative to us, and I'd like to give the positive side to it, just for everybody to know. I've been riding the van for at least, probably about 10 years at least, and I've never had a problem. I am a local resident, as stated, and the previous driver and the previous administration probably allowed some of the Delaware County members who were right on the borderline to ride on our bus, on our van. It's actually a VA van is what we call it. And stenciled right on the side, it says Otsego County Veterans Van. Okay? Not Delaware and Otsego County, Otsego County. All right? It's very clear. And I feel like this particular writer was attempting to get a negative reaction to all this, come down heavy on our Veterans Administrator, which I thought was a little bit too heavy and not clearly stated. Everything she wrote here was thinly disguised as an attempt to put us down. Very negative spin on her story and so forth. But with any story, the facts are never, and especially in news, radio, papers, you never get all of the facts all at once. So I'd like to just show, we pick up people from their homes in Otsego County if they are unable to get to a particular spot. I usually meet the van in Oneonta at the bus station, or in Cooperstown, or I'll go to Milford. Whatever's easiest for the van and me to work out. Some people can't do that, and so we'll go to their home and so forth, and that's fantastic. But in the past, it was loosely enforced, where we would go and help this particular person who was interviewed, this Henry person that was interviewed in this story. And it was just like, the policy was loosely enforced. But there is a policy. There was a policy. Only Otsego County. The big problem here is the liability. If our van happens to be involved in some kind of an accident, what's our liability to these Delaware County veterans, you know? And so we take it very seriously. We're not trying to cut them off, but we take it very seriously about our liability and the cost to our taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer in this county, but these Delaware County people are not. The big issue at this point also is Delaware County has a bus and they have a VA van. They have two vehicles. They don't have just one. And so this person, Henry, who doesn't seem to be able to get to a stop, that's really, and from what I understand, a very personal problem on his part. And that's why he's forced to pay $92 one way or round trip rather, for getting to a local stop for his VA van. But he gets reimbursed part of that from the VA for travel expenses to get to medical help. This is not Otsego County's problem. And we have just started with a new sort of regime, so to speak, a new administration for VA veterans in this county. And I think adhering to the policy that was already there is not a bad idea. I think it's going to save us money in the end. The whole van that we got was given to us, not given to us, but it was because of a grant that this new administrator had, Dennis Clark, had put in for. It's wonderful we have this new van. But all of our little costs like gasoline and upkeep and so forth, that's taxpayer money. And people like me who served. And they're trying to get a little bit back, little help, so I don't have to drive. I'm going through chemo right now. If I was to drive now, I'd be a danger to everybody, okay? So, I'm just saying the VA van is something we really need, and support it, and I think that sometimes the exorbitant positions that writers go through, you don't always hear both sides. And I just want you to know, our side is, we love our VA van. I'm in favor of the policy being adhered to, and so is everybody else who rides our van. So we're going to back Dennis, whatever we have to do. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your interest.
One more, sorry. It's been a long privilege before. Leslie Orzetti, Executive Director of the Otsego County Conservation Association. First off, I'd like to thank each and every one of the representatives and Chairman Bliss for your service this past year. You all work very hard at your jobs and representing your constituents, and I thank you very much for that. I think I'd like to open, I have a couple different points. I'd like to open with saying that you got the big three here, like to kind of talk about ourselves. You have Otsego 2000, the Land Trust, and OCCA here speaking on behalf of different environmental issues in the county. And I think that's rather telling, because I think a few different meetings this year, you've had all three of us here, showing you that there are some serious environmental issues in the county that we are trying to address. We're trying to help local citizens, and we're doing our best, but we can't do it without the help of our county legislators and our local governments. So I want you to be aware of, we have to take times out of our day to come and be here to address you and to sit through county meetings with you, and that's because we care about the environment in Otsego County, and having all three of us here I think is rather telling. Point number two, we work together all the time. We're constantly consulting each other, emailing back and forth. In fact, I was just on the phone with Ellen this morning before I got here. I was emailing back and forth with Pat before I got here this morning. And so we don't work in a vacuum. We're constantly talking to each other to making sure we're helping each other where we can. We're backing off where someone else has it. We're like, okay, you've got it. We'll take care of something else. But we do like to advocate for each other. And I would like to advocate for the sale of property on Roses Hill for Otsego Land Trust. The Land Trust are premier stewards of their properties and their easement properties that are privately held. Each easement, conservation easement, is different depending on the landowner, and so it's up to the landowner and their priorities for their property. And so, as Pat said, this parcel next to Federally Forest, which would be contiguous, from an ecological standpoint, I'm put on my nerd hat right now, it creates contiguous forest corridor, which I know in the early 1920s, this county wasn't as forested as it is now because there were massive plantings of trees. And you do have good forest here. However, it's important to have contiguous parcels of forest because it allows for migration of animals and less edge habitat versus interior forest habitat, which different organisms need. The Land Trust would steward the property to have meaningful contiguous forest habitat. I know a lot of development, where I came from in Fairfax County, Virginia, we weren't mowing down forests all the time to build strip malls and housing developments and McMansions. However, Otsego County does have relatively cheap land, and so it is conceivable that your land could get bought up and you could put strip malls and McMansions and start mowing down forests. And so having another property under easement could indeed help preserve contiguous tracts of forest for the county. Ms. Dillingham talked about climate change and its impacts to the county. To translate, we are seeing critters that are coming up and destroying our forests. Emerald ash borer, hemlock woolly adelgid, just to name a couple of them. And should this parcel go under the control of the land trust, they would be monitoring for these pests to make sure that if they are in, well, the emerald ash borer is down in Unadilla, hemlock woolly adelgid, there's a few locations in the county where they have been spotted. But the beauty of having the land trust in ownership is that they monitor this. And so we can keep track of our forest pests. The climate is changing, we're getting warmer, we don't have as long snow cover. Well, this winter, this fall, we'll talk about that. But the weather patterns are changing. And while we all think about rain and flood and whatnot, it's the forest pests, the plant pests, the mosquitoes carrying West Nile virus, or possible malaria. I know we haven't gotten that far yet, but these things are marching north. And the better stewards we are for their lands, the better we can try to control that and keep the health and safety of our residents in mind. That was that point. All right, the third point I have, I was just talking to another local resident today. I mean, I got a lot done before I got here. And she lives on Route 205, and you know, OCCA has kind of stepped away and let Otsego 2000 talk about the gas trucks. She said there are still trucks running up and down Route 205, not as many. They have been, that number has been lowered. However, I think anyone who has driven on 28 through by Canandaigua Lake and on Route 205 know that that is not an appropriate route for a large truck. Period, amen. Should one of those trucks roll over going down that stretch on 28 by Canandaigua Lake, that's going to take out somebody's house. That's, if it dumps, it's going to dump right into Canandaigua Lake. It is not an appropriate route. I don't know how, I know it's a state route, and I know the county doesn't have jurisdiction over it. However, there has to be through the DOT or something, or maybe Danny, not Daniel, can look at this through GIS to see how the roads are rated for what kind of truck traffic they can have, the state routes. We've also maybe mitigated the problem, but we pushed it over to somebody else's problem, and that's not the point. The point was to get those trucks on the interstate, on roads that are appropriate for them, that aren't windy, that aren't curvy, that aren't hilly, that aren't narrow. I don't think it's fair for us to push our problems over to a neighboring county. And I know you can say, oh, fair is fair. It's not appropriate. And Route 8 still does wind in and out of Otsego County. So I am asking the county legislators if they could please write again to XNG, and I know our neighboring county isn't your jurisdiction. However, in good partnership with neighboring counties, I would hope that you could write and ask them again to think about your request to put them on the interstate. Because just pushing it out of our county onto a neighboring county is not, I think, what the intended purpose of that letter was. I think that's all. Thank you very much. Oh, and we have a plastic bag challenge. In good news, OCCA is sponsoring a plastic bag challenge for local schools. So if you have any of your nuggets or nieces and nephews or grandbabies in any local schools, some of them are taking part in this challenge to get plastic bags out of our landfills and collected and sent over to local grocery stores. So talk to your local schools and see if they're involved. and then cheer them on, because it's a contest. And the winners get Zoomobile stuff. Yay! All right, thank you very much for your time, and happy holidays.
May I make a short comment? 2 sentences. Just that we very strongly support the comments of Mrs. Orzetti saying that these trucks should not just be pushed off to another county on their local roads. It was not something I could bring up because of time constraints, but I just want to emphasize that I'm grateful she brought it up, and Otsego 2000 is firmly behind and feel a sense of urgency about it. We do not want simply to push this over to other residents who are equally blameless and don't even know what's going on with all these trucks on their roads. X and G must use the interstates. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would like privilege of the floor. Thank you. Russell Aarons, and I'm living at 180 County Highway 26. Get this on the camera if you would. Return the widow's home by resolution. It would not be the first time it's been done. I have in my hand here Harf's website talking about their sales. Many counties still accept until the last day. Seneca County does, and Seneca County is unique and beautiful county. Susan B. Anthony, I believe, was from that county. The things that county does is quite amazing. They'll let the people buy it back themselves. At least they have to pay at least what's due. They also use Auctions International. I've talked about the auction companies before. That's a 6% buyer's premium, so that the price realized can be higher than the 10% buyer's premium. So it actually could benefit the county. We've used Auctions International in 2016, a rather reputable and good company. They needed to make an announcement. The treasurer at that time, Dan Crowell, did not want to make this announcement. But there was a disabled man living in a home in Morris, and the auctioneer decided that he needed to make that announcement. Much the same way, the announcement was made in Maria Jello's home by order of Judge Burns, except that the announcement wasn't made. Our county attorney had promised in court to do this, yet it didn't happen. Now, Jim Castani used to sit in that seat. Many people have had criticism of Jim Castani, including our esteemed district attorney. Jim Castani had advised me before the auction, because we had asked him, should we buy the house back? And he said, no, don't buy the house back. He said, you'd be wasting your money. But I really didn't pay full attention to him. I did bid it in. I shouldn't have been bidding. It was just like yesterday, what was it, Monday night we had an auction close here in the county. Bunch of equipment. Did anybody in this room get in on the action of that auction? I could have. I mean, I drove many of those cars that we were selling. I knew the good ones from the bad ones. We have mechanics that are excluded from bidding. As I understand, they're told they can't be bidding. So why do we have people on the inside, Mr. Frazier, wanting to be bidding? It's wrong. Now, this county makes mistakes, and you as reps have made errors too. And I look at Mr. Wilbur when I say this because of your forgetting this year to do your signature. 4 months later, your co-board members in a bipartisan way came together and said, no, wait, we're not going to throw him out of here. We'll show him leniency and let him take care of the mistake. Now, making mistakes is what we do as humans. Lots of them. And we're seeing mistakes every day. Allow this woman to make it right. Allow her to return to her home or compensate her justly. Eternity awaits all of us, as our president, our late president, knows now. And we pray for him in all earnesty, and I pray for our souls to do the right thing while we have the opportunity. To do the ethical thing is what's needed. Now, we have asked for an ethics review since the very beginning of this, since long before the title was transferred. And we endured 14 months while the title was held. And we were harassed without mercy, maybe not in the workplace, but every time we came home there were people stalking us. These bidders were stalking us. And I talked to personnel and I wrote to personnel, and personnel felt that their hands were tied to do anything about it. All you would have had to do was say, no, we can't complete the sale. 2 reasons. The price was not even close to fair and reasonable. And the ethics involved here is beyond description. You don't take homes from people that want to pay, and they got the money in their hand. Now, when Mrs. Kokoma and Dan Crowell counseled Maria Jello, when she discussed this with them, they just closed the door in her face. I wasn't there. Now, I tried to talk with the county attorney in this, related actually to my work as a county adult protective worker. I felt, and I know that there is an issue, as a problem here. Our county attorney, again, refused to talk to me. So, I would consider there needs to be changes in this county. Do the right thing. And we ask you that, and then you're going to save time every month. This county doesn't need its reputation tarnished and dragged through the aisles like this. Now I'm going to, just a few names here. Betty Ann Schwerd used to sit in that seat, was a dear friend of mine. Representative Clark thought there was some kind of inappropriate relationship, that she would stand up and represent a taxpayer that wasn't in her district. I count on every one of you representing us, and I thank my representative for standing up and doing the right things. You don't decide who you're going to help in this. For instance, if there was a fire going on, Representative McCarty, you were a fireman for a long time, when you get to that rental house, and you know there's an apartment with some Jersey people over here, and some Richfield people over here, you don't decide you're going to help only the Richfield people. It's a moral duty to help everyone. And that's what a fireman does. And I thank you for your service, sir. And you are a seasoned person here on this board. But everybody can be replaced. Please pick up the campaign signs. The sheriff's campaign sign, the unsuccessful challenger, corner of 36, I'll give you the location, and 34. Got a sign there. We got them out in the outlying districts too. And I've been seeing these signs, and boy, that candidate really saturated this area with signs. So you've got a lot of work to do. Get out here before the snowbanks get big again. God bless you all.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I cannot let it go.
It was McCarty.
People are free to say what they want, apparently on the privilege of the floor, but do not be careless with the truth. I never expressed any such sentiment with Betty Ann Schwerd. I believe it is everybody's responsibility to represent anybody from any district, and have done so myself. Can't let it stand.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Minutes of the November 7th meeting are available online. Move approval.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved. Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
I have the October report from Catholic Charities for the Alternatives to Incarcerations program. And I also have received a letter from Ed Keeter Jr. expressing concerns about the tentative budget document, projected fund balances, and the proposed management raises.
It's going to pass anyway.
Special presentations, Karen Sullivan, Solid Waste.
I'm going to stand over here. Can everyone see? It's been 5 years since the county removed themselves from MOSA. So some of you were here during that event, and some of you have joined us since. At our last Solid Waste and Environmental Concerns Committee meeting, we thought it might be appropriate just to address the full board to make sure that you understand the process of the solid waste budget. We have 2 resolutions presented today, one for the user fee and the other for the tip fee and cost at the transfer station. As you know, last month you approved the contract with Casella Waste Management to move on to another 5-year contract. So we put together some information, and I just lost it. Okay, that's what I need to do. Over to the right. Yep.
There we go. Okay, so we started looking at our historical tons of municipal waste from 2014 and 18. 2014, as you know, was a half a year of MOSA and a half year of the county. So even though we have the statistics, I don't kind of include this in my projections. As you can see, in 2014, we had 38,034 tons of municipal solid waste. We use the acronym MSW. And in 2018, we're projected to have around 38,560. Not a large change, so we're pretty constant with our solid waste and MSW. In 2014, recyclables were around 3,800 tons. Of course, MOSA was doing the recyclables in 2014, and they really did not do much with the recyclables. It was still the county's responsibility. In 2018, we're projected to collect around 4,800 tons of recyclables, and that has a simple response. We went to single stream. We were dual stream in 2014, and I think it was in 2015 we went into a single stream, and we have increased our revenue of tip fee and user fee. So we're parallel, and we try to parallel the cost with what we set for tip fee and user fee. And this shows you a good example. As you can see, in 2014, we did not have any tip fee revenue because the county was part of MOSA, and MOSA did not. We did not share in that revenue. So here again is our user fee revenue, our tip fee revenue, our budget, and our combined revenue. So as you can see through the years, the user fee revenue is based on the unit cost, the number of units, and we try to keep track of those units. And so over the period of time, you can see in 2014 at $28 a unit generated over $1 million in revenue to offset your recycling and solid waste budget. As we've moved down to 2016 and 17, of course that's about half because it went to $15 a unit. With a projected $20 a unit, we would be bringing the user fee revenue up to around $800,000 for the budget. Any questions? So these are some significant issues that have happened over time. The, let's call it the orange, and I'm sorry if anybody's colorblind, but these are our costs in our recyclables that we've collected. Recyclables were free to anyone, callers and residents, up until the middle of 2018. All right, now if you've been watching the papers, we have the China sword syndrome, and that has been a key issue with us. So you can see that there were no costs associated with the total recyclables. When we get to 2017, that little colored one, the blue hyphenated one, I've got it like filled with color, that was revenue that we were getting. We were actually getting revenue from our recyclables. And in the beginning of 2018, we were getting $15 a ton for the recyclables that we were processing. So there's two steps to recyclables. You collect them from all of the 11 stations around the county, you bring them to Oneonta, they compact them, and then they transport them to a MRF, a manufacturing recycling facility. That MRF then charges the hauler, or they didn't charge a hauler, they gave credit in the beginning of 2018 of the number of tons. So you got 20 tons, you're getting $15 of credit for every ton that you're giving, and the county got revenue from that. With the China syndrome, that went from $15 a ton of credit to now $70 to $80 a ton to process. So we're not only going to be paying $79 a ton to collect and manage your material, we're now going to be subject to a processing fee, which last month was $70. When I projected the budget, I was conservative and used $80 a ton, but you can see the importance of that and the impact it has had on our budget. The green line shows the recycling tip fee. Another step we took in 2018 was to implement a recycling tip fee to the haulers. Now haulers collect their recyclables curbside, or they go to a business and they collect the recyclables. It's been free to them. They may have been charging you, but it's been free for them to take those recyclables to our transfer stations. Halfway through 2015, when we saw our budget going really out of control, we implemented a $55 a ton fee to commercial haulers to drop off recyclables. Not as much as solid waste, because we didn't want them to say, well, it's not worth me separating, I'll just throw everything together and put it in with the trash. So that does generate about 3/4 of our monthly cost. We're going to try to keep that at $55 a ton this month, or this year. If we have to, we can adjust it. We're trying to make some other efforts to make changes in what we're collecting in recyclables. So another change in our solid waste program has been our e-waste collection. In 2015, 16, and 17, we had no cost. It was free. And that's the state legislation. As you know, a while back, we put a resolution into the state to change that legislation. DEC, when they wrote their legislation, assumed that electronics were going to go like this. Well, they haven't. They have maintained a steady flow. We get more electronics than we can manage. We work with Evolution Recycling to collect our material, take it there, separate it. But it's costing us roughly this year around, I'm going to guess, $40,000 by the end of the year. DEC implemented a rebate of roughly 50%, but it's only on certain material. And we've been applying for that rebate and getting it, but we don't know how long that's going to last. So your electronics is costing the county. We can't charge the consumer, because if we charge the consumer, then we can't get the rebates that we're applying for. That may change with time. I'm not sure where that's going. We're trying to keep involved with, you know, the legislation, what the state's doing, but ultimately it's costing us money when it didn't 3 years ago. Let's see what else we got here. Again, here's our electronic recycling costs 2015 through 18. The highlighted colors in the middle are the revenue that we received back, and then our total cost for, like I said, we're looking at roughly $39,000 at the end of 2018. Some changes with our new contract for our municipal solid waste and recycling. We've heard many people, you know, upset with the change in hours when we left those at Northern. We're now going to do Monday through Friday, 7 to noon, and Saturdays, 8 to noon. We will not be doing the extended hours in the summer. From our surveys and tallies, the people that used it in those extended hours is very minimal. We've already sat with the haulers, the two major haulers in the county. We went over a lot of this with them. They're in agreement that this will work better. It's going to generate more garbage. It's going to spread it across 5 days, 6 days instead of 4 days. Southern will stay the same, and again, no extended hours in the summer. Casella will be providing the debit and credit card processing at both locations. That's one thing we've heard people complain about. Either have to have cash or a contract with Casella, so they will be implementing credit cards January 1. Casella will be overseeing the mattress recycling program directly with Triad. Used to be this reconciliation every month. You know, we'd get a bill, they would give us a revenue. So make it simple. Triad is going to be directly contracted with Casella. We don't have to handle that anymore. And Casella will be paying the utility costs for recycling the Oneonta station. So that's another thing that we formalized with our agreement. Here will be our proposed schedule for next year. $80 a ton for MSW. Out-of-county waste will be $83.50, and the county does get $3.50 for every out-of-county ton that's delivered. It generates around just under $10,000 based on historical data. Demolition will be the same, $80 per ton. Recycling, commercial, we're keeping at $55. Scaled MSW minimum fee, I said $20 up to 500 pounds. Bag fee is going to go up $1 up to 30-gallon bags, and out-of-county waste, as I mentioned, $83.50. Free-on removal went from $25 to $28. Bulk white goods from $25 to $28. Auto tires went up $1. We have trouble finding markets for tires. It's costly. We have to pay to get rid of them, so we're going to have to charge a consumer to do that as well. They do take tires by the ton, and that went from $125 to $240. So those are rare situations, but it is, again, a price that went up. Mattresses and box springs will remain at $25 per unit, and we do a certified weight scale at $5 per unit. So if someone needs their truck scaled, they do the tar weight, they charge them $5. We have a return check fee of $30 per check. Any questions?
Who gets the weight fee?
The weight fee goes to Casella. Yeah. And that's occasional thing. It might be, you know, we've had, trying to think what we had, something going in weight. It was like $5 they charge just to read the scale. Efforts to reduce the recycling cost. The county can improve the quality of our recycling material and seek alternatives to overseas markets so we can reduce our processing costs. Okay, as I said, I'm going to be paying $70 to $80 a ton. That's monthly. That changes over time. All depends on the market. I don't think it's going to get better immediately. I'm looking 3 to 4 years before this really settles. Educate the public and hauling companies to reduce our contamination. One of the things that we're doing in our office is we're going to be offering these OOPS stickers. Casella's already doing this. We're going to offer it to Russ Southern, Russ Smith, and a few others that are hauling to say, you find a recycling container that's contaminated, they got plastic, they got things in there that are not clean, put this on it, and let's deal with it. Let's say we're not going to do this. They've already tried this with Casella, and they've seen a significant improvement in the material that people are putting out there. And I think it's all the fact that people don't know. You know, we're trying our best. We pay a lot of money for advertising. We try to get the word out, but we're going to start using these, and hopefully it'll make some impact. We're looking for alternatives for the market. I've had 2 conversations with 2 businesses in the area that produce glass. I've been in touch with Andela. Andela has sat in these meetings with us. Trying to get glass commodity is the worst market right now. No one wants glass. It's the heaviest material. Take the heaviest material out of your recyclables, you can reduce your tonnage, reduce your cost. So we have met with Omegang and we have met with Otsego. Otsego seems very much on board. Omegang's kind of questioning it. But we are trying to work with those big producers of glass. If anybody knows of anyone, let me know. I'll sit down with them, talk with them, and show them an alternative. And Dell will take the glass for nothing. So it's just getting it there. Cardboard and styrofoam. Again, cardboard is something you can get money for. If you're hauling cardboard to the transfer station, as I think the county is, you can get money for it. It's not a lot, but it's worth paying, $20 to haul it across the scale. And styrofoam, we got the grant for the styrofoam densifier. We'll be working with the ARC to get that densifier going and remove the styrofoam from the waste stream. So this starts at curbside. I'm very thankful that you supported the extra person in our office, the position. That person's going to be the person out in the field. That's a person that's going to be sitting down with these businesses. That's a person that's hopefully going to be teaching people how to separate and get money for what they're doing instead of just paying to get rid of it. And it all comes to complacency. As we went to single stream, I heard this at Nice Army, we became complacent with our recycling. Years ago when we separated everything, we looked at the colors, we looked at the material, we separated it. Now, single stream, and I remember this conversation I had with someone. They said, I thought zero sort, you just threw everything together, meaning not just recyclables, but garbage and recyclables. I'm like, no. So, I really am thankful for your support on that, and we hope to get, some things rolling. We wanted to mention also that Exeter is closing. It just basically has to do with supervision of the site. So I've gotten the word out on that. That'll be effective January 1. Thank you. Any questions?
A comment from the floor. I was just at the Northern Transfer Station this morning, and it's come to my attention that it's not being kept up the way it was when the county ran it. We have a lot of glass on the ground there. I was, right after I went to the dump, I went down to the Fly Creek store and talking to some guys down there. One of them got a screw in his tire. It's sad to see that it's not the same as when the county took it. Took care of things. And they really did. They had a sweeper up there and just more than scrubbing the ground with a backhoe. So, and I really appreciate what you're doing and the issues that you're coming up against here.
Well,
your department does a great job there, and thank you for your collection days. They are extremely helpful. In the town of Hartwick, we have our big group collection. They brought in all kinds of stuff, and that helps the community, helps to clean up the community. So we do appreciate your efforts and your work.
Well, thank you, Russ. And I will bring that to Casella's attention. The county hasn't operated the site, only under Moses supervision. For years, so all I can do is bring that to their attention and mention it. But I do know that cleaning is...
and the improvement you did up there is helpful. Filling in the big pothole and, that's helpful. That's noted, duly noted.
Thank you.
Do you know where the Walmarts of the world that crush the glass and the returnables, where that
I don't know exactly, but a lot of facilities that I'm finding out are recycling their own material and transporting it out of the county. So big box facilities like Walmart, they take their own cardboard, they compact it, they get money for it. Glass, I don't really know where Walmart takes their glass, but those are things I really want to dig into.
Could take it up to Antelis.
Well, we're working with the northern part of the county because, again, transportation, getting it there is the cost. So she's willing to take as much as we can. Doesn't matter if it has a label on it, doesn't matter if it's a wine bottle with a cork in it, and any individual can take their material there as well. She's very willing to work with us, so we're hoping it's a good source of revenue. Or not revenue, but a good source of disposal.
I was going to make a suggestion, but then I thought about it. Never mind.
No, I'm open-minded, you know that.
I was going to suggest that perhaps we put together a mailer on the cleanliness of the recyclables and maybe get the haulers to put it in their...
I'm already on it. We talked to them.
Well, the problem I thought of is my hauler, it doesn't come in an envelope, it comes in its own computerized form that you couldn't put it anywhere.
And some do electronic. Casella's, everything's electronic now. I don't get a paper bill either.
Okay.
So we've got a promotional thing to put in the paper. We wanted to make sure that the resolution's passed first of all, but we're going to be advertising. We do have radio ads. Our radio ads are on early in the morning, but we have put things out there real quickly, cleaning the recyclables. Oh, and I did want to share.
How about perhaps maybe putting up some signage in the recycling area?
This is something that we are putting at all the transfer stations. Don't put bags in there. So again, we're going to be doing an audit of the sites to say your material's really bad or your material's fairly good. And then say to these communities that have recycling stations posted, you need to clean up your act. We can't take this material like this anymore. And that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I think Dan makes a good point. If there was more information available just right there, at the recycling, at the transfer station, I think that would be helpful, because there's not really.
Right, and most of the people that go to a transfer station know the recycling. I don't mean to argue.
No, but
the people we need to hit are the people that are putting this stuff by curbside and don't really care. And not care, but understand what they're putting in. And so we're going to try to, like those stickers are going to be a real supporting system to say it's got to start there, because people coming to the transfer station, most of them don't understand recycling. And we do have 2 part-time people there that help to educate people. Again, we want to get more feet on the ground, more out there and educate and, do what we can. So, good suggestions.
I was in WRE probably 2 months ago on a Saturday morning. Jenny was showing, I don't know which one, had ripped one of the bags open and it was laying right on the floor in front of the reception. Said, please don't do this. Your bags are out of...
You can put as many signs up as you want. People just don't read. Yeah.
We'll dump them in the thing, see the thing.
Yep. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, Dan. Andrew's not coming, so we...
Okay, reports to standing committee. Public Works, Representative Obama.
We'll talk about it in January.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss.
Can't do it at December 14th.
Firstly, I'd like to start off again by thanking my Public Works Committee. Coming down to year end, we've had a lot to go over, a lot to manage, a lot to oversee as far as a committee goes. And again, I think I'd like to extend a thank you to each and every one of you for your diligence to your duty. I truly appreciate it. So I kind of came up with maybe a year in review, and I also want to preface this by it's nice to hear some good reports concerning highway. I came home the other night and I had 2 messages, more than 2, but 2 that I will talk about. One, I called an individual back who complained that we were plowing too much, putting too much sand and salt down. I then called a second individual back who complained that we weren't plowing enough. So I guess if it's the proverbial between a rock and a hard place, highway tends to...
Some people kick even when this one.
So I just try to address all concerns. So thank you for the good work. So kind of 2018 year in review for highway anyway. Winter was long and hard on our equipment and actually our budget. We spent approximately $300,000 on sand and $700,000 on salt. As you start to hear some of these amounts, try to put it into perspective. It can, each and every storm, I think now in terms of dollar signs, I don't see snowflakes coming down, I see dollar signs coming down. It can be very taxing. And this winter has started out bad, if not worse. For the first time in a very long time, we actually had to treat roads as of October 18th this year, which is really early for us to start. We treated approximately 52 miles of highways so far this season. We've used and utilized several different types of treatments, including micro-grinding, hot mix overlay, micro-grinding with micro-paving overlay, micro-grinding, hot mix shim and chip seal, paver shim with chip seal, cold-in-place recycling, and a hot mix overlay. We used our own crews as well as contractors for these projects. And these projects were all CHIPS funded at a cost of approximately $4 million. Our crews, we've spread about 4,000 tons of hot mix grader shim all over the county at a cost of $275,000. And this season's price increase in asphalt really cost us as a county about 1,000 tons of grader shim that we could have applied had the cost not hit us. Our crews have replaced 3 concrete box culverts, County Highways 16, 18, and 1, at a cost of just under $160,000. These 3 projects alone most likely would have cost over $1 million if we had contracted them out. We also replaced a 9-foot diameter galvanized culvert on County Highway 46 for $14,000. 2 5-foot diameter, and this is HDPE, which is high density polyethylene, thank you. Culverts on County Highway 39 for just under $10,000. Our crews did a realignment project. We kind of eliminated 3 badly deteriorated box culverts. The project was completed for just under $5,000. The cost of the box culverts alone would have been well over $100,000. We worked with a contractor to repair 2 bank slides on County Highway 28 at the cost of about $254,000. A contractor repaired our Norton Crossroads culverts that had been flagged by DOT at a cost of $285,000. And a contractor replaced the entire deck and bearings on our County Highway 35 bridge at a cost of $345,000. You see a pattern here, a lot of zeros for a lot of work. We purchased this year about $700,000 in equipment, including a Volvo excavator, John Deere loader, some brush chippers, Peterbilt tractor trailer, 2 John Deere mower tractors, and a Diamond Boom mower for our Challenger tractor. We had purchased 13 Peterbilt plow trucks with a total cost of just under $3 million over the next 5 years. Our crews have started the site work for the Gilbertsville salt shed, including hauling over 8 feet of fill and 400 tons of hot mix. So far, we've spent about $75,000 toward our 20% share of this DEC grant-funded project. And again, our crews are continuously replacing culverts, cleaning ditches, cutting shoulders, fixing potholes, replacing guardrails, all other forms of maintenance associated with highway. I cannot thank them enough. As you can see by the 2 calls that I got, some think we do an adequate job, some feel we don't. But believe me, I want to thank each and every one of my highway personnel for the job they do. And every time it snows, I want to put that visual in your mind. I see dollar signs. So, bear with us. We're doing the best we can. Building services, we are progressing with the tiny homes project. Things are moving along there as well. We had a water main break at the Meadows that affected that part. I believe it would be considered well, I guess as you look at the Meadows, it would be the right-hand side. I don't know where it is in relation to east, west, north, or south. Doug had gotten in touch with me, and he proceeded to evaluate what was going on, and we did get it repaired in a fairly expeditious time. We are seeing, again, maintenance issues all over the place. Doug has done an absolute fantastic job staying on top of it. These things always come up at the most inopportune moments. At the public safety building, renovations and repairs are proceeding. I get copied on every repair request that comes out of the public service, and we're averaging about 3 a day. You can imagine anything that goes on. So again, a great job of keeping all of that put together. I asked Robert O'Brien to kind of give me some updates as far as tower management and how that is progressing. So we're still talking with the management company, kind of hammering out language as far as our agreement goes. We hope, and this is what Rob says, to have this completed by year's end. He has a bunch of proposals for wireless carriers that are desiring to be on some of these towers. The process and our methodology, I guess, is to try to leverage those positions on those towers with increased service in those areas that we have poor service. Companies, being sometimes the way they are not as interested in going into those areas. So we're trying to, again, leverage our real estate on those towers for increasing some of the coverages in those areas. We've completed the addition of the 3 new tower sites, and everything is performing well. Building services, again, is supporting our needs as far as that goes when it comes to snow removal, HVAC, and other business or building, related matters. One thing of note, we did have a lightning strike at our Roses Hill Tower, and we did suffer some extensive damage that was there to the electronics. Repairs have been completed actually this week, and we are looking at organizing a lightning audit, as this has been the second strike this year at that site. So we're going to hopefully, I don't know what a lightning audit entails. Hopefully it's not the Chair of Public Works holding a lightning rod up there to determine if lightning does actually strike twice in one time. So that pretty much brings into play where we are in 2018. One thing I would like to address the board, and this is moving forward as well, not only for maybe 2019, but further on down. The deferred maintenance, I won't say program, but concept that we've utilized for our county roads. As we move forward, we're really going to need to address this. The largest asset that I feel we, as the county, have the right and the stewardship to manage is our county roads. That's the number one asset that we possess. And I would hope that as we do try to move forward with budgeting, with monies, that we would start to allocate and allow monies to really manage this number one asset. I feel our number two asset is our employees. And guess what's the number one asset that they use when they come to work? Our roads. So I know budgets are tight, I know money is tight, there's no argument on this point, but any place, any time, anything, any idea that we could use to start to generate monies, and they can be specific in that they can go directly to resurfacing, managing, ditching, trees. I mean, we can kind of control through how we fund this, those type of things. And I really feel, like I said, as moving forward, it's an area that we should consider. With that, I would like to thank everyone and wish them Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year. Thank you.
Questions for the chair?
I have a question. Pete, I was wondering, would it expedite the discussions with the tower management with regards to trying to get companies into the lower served areas, those poles, if we put a policy in place countywide? Would that give us more teeth going into that discussion? I just think it's really an important policy to have, and if it's just kind of understood versus written, I just wondered if that would help.
I think that actually would be
Another policy.
And I don't want to increase our efforts to create another policy, but in this case, it actually probably would give us a little bit more traction in negotiating. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that
It's a
we
good
may have
idea.
to go that way route.
Good idea.
Discuss it at our next meeting.
We will definitely talk about this at our next Public Works meeting. Yeah.
Part Star RFP was due back at the beginning of
Yep, it has come back, and the only company that we received from is Gillies. They wanted clarification on just 3 points. Did we get back with them, Rich? So that we did clarify those 3 points that they were interested in looking at? And it's the only thing we have.
I just wanted to get clarification on 2 things. First of all, just to double check, Rose's Hill, the sale of Rose's Hill was in the budget for 2017, and then it was in the budget for 2018, right? For $140,000.
Correct.
Okay. And I just wanted to get clarification on the RFP process. So RFP comes in, Home Committee, Public Works reviews that RFP, votes to forward it or to advance it to administration. Administration reviews that approval from Public Works. In this case, the Roses Hill property sale, you got the RFP,
right,
approved it in Public Works, sent it to admin, they approved it, then it came to the board for a resolution vote.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, again, not to harp on our committee process and system, but here is a perfect example, $140,000 in the budget, bid over by $11,000, $151,000 bid, money that we budgeted, Otsego County, this Board of Representatives approved that budget last year. Second year in a row, we haven't fulfilled or executed the sale of that property to bring that money in. To your point about the need for more revenue, to pay, we deferred maintenance on our highways is in the millions and millions of dollars. And we haven't been able to execute that. We have another property in Unadilla that went up for RFP that was failed, I understand.
We did not get a bidder.
We didn't get a bidder at all. And so county's holding these properties off the tax rolls. In the meantime, we can't even approve an actual bid of $151,000, where we could have discussed it in the committee system to head off an actual vote of basically saying to this bidder, we don't want your money. So I just want to be clear, Public Works, that was the due diligence process that RFP kind of tracked the progress.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Any other
Can I just
questions?
comment to that for a minute? Just so the Public Works Committee, which I'm on, I wasn't at that meeting when that bid came in.
Okay.
So, and I had
didn't
a
know you
question
weren't
at the
there.
last board meeting about if it was gonna go off the tax roll or not. That's when this all resolved. So I wasn't at that Public Works meeting, so I wasn't part of going over that RFP.
Just to double check, what about admin though, Keith?
Serendipitously.
Aren't you
he
on
was
admin?
not-
Yes, I am.
He was not present when
I
we
wasn't there at that one. I was
discussed
out of
that
town.
topic.
I'm sorry, Meg, I didn't hear.
I just said serendipitously, as it were, Keith was not present during that part of the admin meeting where we discussed the Roses Hill property. So we did not have an opportunity to hear his concerns at the committee level.
And then before the board meeting, I asked a bunch of people, I asked Meg about the tax situation, if it went after tax roll, and nobody knew. That's why I pulled it to find out. And then we found out that they said they could take it off the tax roll after they bought it if they wanted to.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. IGA, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss.
Before, I almost always forget.
When's your next meeting?
I always forget my next meeting. So, next Public Works meeting.
Well, technically,
There's no committee set.
there is no.
Oh, you're right, that's right. That's right.
You're not having a December?
You know what? I did.
Oh, don't you have your December meeting?
December meeting. We have December of Tuesday, the 18th, at 9 a.m. That is correct. Well, are we or aren't we? I guess we are now.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's the next meeting that,
It's December.
Yeah.
December is.
Yes.
We're not done.
Okay.
We're not being kicked out yet.
IGA. We met on November 13th. We had Greg Klein come in and discuss his current interest and continuing interest in establishing a film industries office or within our region, if not within our county. And he's still working on that project and showed us a proposed budget. And we listened to his ideas with interest, and also this is a topic that's being discussed at the NISAC Winter Conference. I'm sure you probably noticed that. Kind of jumped right out at me. So hopefully we'll be able to find out a little bit more about that at that point as well, and keeping the channels open with Greg and seeing what works out with that. We did approve the bids for the Farm Restore Administration with the Otsego County Rural Housing Agency, the Ag Micro Grant with TOMA to administer that grant and screen the applicants and guide them through the process, as well as award the checks eventually. And also awarded TOMA with the General Grant Administration. We did have discussion with Jody Zagrebski from Otsego Now, and what we were discussing were options for providing operating support to Otsego Now. And I think that everyone agrees that we would like to have economic development in our county, and at what level of participation the County Board of Representatives would commit county funds is one of the topics that we continue to discuss. We reappointed Lori Landbauer as the Republican Commissioner of Elections. That was, I know we met for longer, but those are all my notes from Tuesday, from that Tuesday, November 13th. We did have a second meeting on November 27th where we sat down with the representatives from the town of Hartwick, and they presented a request for further program income that we've been discussing throughout the year. There is still, I guess I'm going to just put this in quotes, some left over, or some unallocated program income money, and the town of Hartwick requested that they be funded in an economic feasibility study that will currently, that would coincide with a water and sewer study that they are doing in the Route 28 corridor. So we listened to that presentation, and then eventually we did see fit to award them the money that they were asking. We also formulated and discussed extensively the plan of work for the committee, for the IGA committee, with regards to the strategic, say the words, Andrew, your strategic.
It's,
Yeah, see?
you mean the committee
You know,
itself?
that one, yeah.
Yeah,
The-
strategic planning, strategic and technology planning
Yeah, right.
committee.
So all of the committees are putting together plans of work, and so we looked at that wall in the conference room and went down the list of all of the things that the IGA committee is responsible for, what comes under our purview, and came up with ideas to help maintain a dynamic discussion of those things so that they would not be just pushed aside or not left out. Then that afternoon we had Stephen Aquario and Alexandra Lamont, and also the Greene County Administrator, Sean Groden, met with us for 2 hours, and we discussed shared services. Stephen Aquario came back with things that had come up with our first meeting, and came back and addressed some of the things for the first hour. He left us with this review of plans submitted under the state countywide shared services initiative, which I read this, so now you can read this. It's also probably, it might be available online, but it's a very interesting and also it's extensive discussion of the shared services countywide program. Also, Mr. Groden discussed his job as Greene County Administrator for an hour. We had a question and answer period that I think was, I think everyone who attended the meeting benefited greatly by hearing his responses and his discussion and his interpretation of the job and his duties and responsibilities and how he interacts with his board in Greene County, and I felt it was of great benefit. Sadly, I got an email from NISAC this morning that the Tuesday, December 18th, third NISAC session has to be rescheduled to another day. So keep posted for when we do work out that day, because Stephen Aquario will be coming back. He's quite dedicated to bringing us information and sharing a lot of information from NISAC, and actually what a tremendous tool that could work out to be for us if we tap into it correctly. Our next IGA meeting is Tuesday, December 11th at 9 a.m. And if anyone has any questions, Danny?
Can you give a quick update as to where we are with the Energy Task Force?
The Energy Task Force, we met again with the incubator group, and we are getting ready to expand that, to issue invitations into expanding that group into the next level of participation and widening out who's going to be involved.
Oh, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Thank you. Human Services, Representative Kruger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Megan, Adrian, and Danny, and Kathy for their work on the committee this year. It's a really complicated department whose work and especially whose funding is so convoluted and complex. The management team does a great job of presenting it in a way that we can absorb and digest and make appropriate decisions. So I want to thank them as well. This month we passed resolutions to support a large number of contracts that DSS uses to do a number of its mandated services. We do this for a couple months before the end of the year, so we get them all in, but not all at once. Fiscal health is good. We occasionally have an individual that comes into our area of responsibility whose placement's very high cost. and we do now have one of those individuals who we're responsible for, but due to the budgeting that we've done every year, we're still in good shape fiscally. We, under personnel, made some changes there, but talked a lot about training. Training is a big issue, as you can imagine, in DSS. A lot of it's mandated, a lot of it's state performed training, and the state is at the same time opening a brand new training facility in the town of Rensselaer, where all their training will be for the whole state instead of being decentralized. And at the same time, they lost their main consultant, the main contractor who has been doing that training for a number of years, and are looking around to solve that problem. So training is a hot topic over there at this point. We discussed a number of issues, including moving child welfare eligibility to the accounting unit. I think we approved some of the position changes last month to facilitate this. The tiny homes, as you've heard, that's progressing. And I think I read in one of the minutes that the groundwork is suspended for the winter. Is that true? Which makes sense. But we do have, my understanding again is that we have a grant to provide some geothermal heating and cooling alternatives. The community garden grant application was not accepted, but we're still looking for ways to do that through other funding sources. We're working on our, this is a fairly big issue, our security contract it runs out at the end of this year. We've had some problems in terms of renewing that, and we may end up needing to extend the current contract so that before we can put in place a more longer-term one. But that should be fine by the time we're done with that. Just a little bump in the road. 242 is still an issue at DSS because they would really like to have some sort of a satellite operation. We talked a lot of alternatives to that, a satellite operation in Oneonta at some point. So we're just waiting on progress there. Lots more in the minutes. Anybody's interested in questions, you can ask now or later on. Next meeting is Wednesday, December 12th at 1:30 in the Meadows. We're alternating back and forth now between the two buildings because, of course, DSS is split up between those two buildings.
Any questions for the chair? Thank you, Gary. Public Safety, Legal Affairs, Representative Frazier.
We met on November 15th. Rob O'Brien from 911 came in. We approved some purchasing for monitoring services for the towers. He also brought us up to date, as Representative Oberacker spoke, of the Roses Hill lightning strike. We are performing a lightning audit. What that's going to do is attempt to pinpoint where the vulnerabilities are in the systems. That tower's only been up for a year, and we've had 2 lightning strikes. You know, how can we protect our system more efficiently, more effectively? So where does lightning hit a lot? Other towers, other counties, other states, how are they protecting them? Ones that are more susceptible than you would think Otsego County. So that's what we're looking at. He also talked that the county attorneys working on sample contracts for tower management. The sheriff came in. We approved a contract with Bassett Medical for jail physician services. This is no increase over the last contract. asked about the jail renovations, the RFP. We were told that that's still with purchasing. I spoke with Andrew Trombley yesterday, and they are still working on that for us. Code enforcement, Tony Gentile came in. As many of you know, there's a reorganization in his department. A lot of those are new budgeted positions, which is relatively neutral to the budget. We approved all that. We approved some training for him. The public defender, Bruce Maxson, and Penny Gentile came in. Speaking of reorganization and addition of positions, we have quite a few in there. Some of those are on our agenda today. With Penny that day, we did approve to reappoint Art Klingler for our Emergency Services Coordinator. That's going to be a two-year appointment for 2019 and 2020. Art and Rob O'Brien have been directed to meet and coordinate and to discuss the needs and the possibility of moving anything forward as far as shared services and fire EMS response in some of our underserved areas. They're both coming to our next meeting. The ATI meeting schedule is scheduled January 17th. The Fire Advisory Board is the third Thursday, which is the 20th. And our next meeting is December 13th at 12:30.
Any questions for Representative Fraser?
Can I ask one? Yeah, I am responding part of it. That's up and working now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the texting to the members going to stop after January 1st? The regular text messaging?
I don't know that, Keith.
I think it's already stopped. I don't get mine anymore.
Oh, we had one the other day. I got it.
I think it's per department. You can still determine if you want it.
Some people don't have the I am responding part, and they get texted.
I don't get text anymore, so.
You can, by department, you can determine if you still want to be text or I am responding. You know, right now, from what I understand.
That's a Rob question. Tell Rob.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ed. Health and Ed, Representative Stanley's not here, Representative Clark.
All right, Kevin McDonald came in requesting a series of budget transfers and also talked about a plan for staffing and priorities in the upcoming year. And she should forward that to Andrew, the plan committee to deal with. I don't know if he has anything to expand on that. Heidi Bond was in, talked about no flu cases so far, one more rabies clinic for the year, and asked for approval to fill some vacancies. Terry Knapp came in and talked about the guideline booklet that he sent, gave to the committee before and had shared with the other coroners. He did a lot of work on that himself. Danny came in and gave an update on the process to hire an ag implementation specialist. I don't know if you want to talk about that right now.
We interviewed 6 candidates over the phone about a month ago, and 2 weeks ago we had interviewed our 2 final candidates. One was rather young. She is one of the founders of the Leatherstocking chapter of the National Young Farmers Coalition, and the other was a former statewide director of the Farm Services Agency, Jim Barber. We are in the process of finalizing our hiring decision, and there should be a public statement released by Cornell Cooperative Extension sometime in the next few weeks. We anticipate this individual to take their place as the ag implementation specialist as quickly as possible. Our next Otsego County Ag Environment Protection Plan Committee meeting is Thursday, this Thursday at 1 at Cooperative Extension.
And next meeting is Monday, December 10th, 9 a.m.
questions for Representative Clark? Thank you, Kathy. SWEC, Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on December 16th. Jordan Clements came in for soil and water and gave an update report for what was going on. He's got to prepare reports for the state, employee evaluations, and received funding to conduct studies for the 3 watersheds, Butternut, Cherry Valley, Creek, and Otsego creeks. Karen gave a solid waste report, and she gave an excellent one this morning, so I'm not going to go over that. We spent a lot of time on the tip fee and the user fee, and you'll see resolution 335 setting the user fee at $20, and resolution 336 setting the tip fee at $80. She also gave the following updates. DEC stakeholder meeting was December 26th in Syracuse. She gave a report status of the PACE financing. Would lack 90 points away from having climate smart community certification. She wanted to know if we wanted to continue with that. The census was yes. We talked about the solar and NISAC issue. We're apparently not getting the credits that we are supposed to, and it's kind of up in turmoil. I don't know if Ellen's involved with that or not.
No, they haven't asked me to get involved, but I can. I think they better.
I think we, at Public Works, didn't we ask Mr. Zerke to get
Yes.
Ellen involved in it? And,
Yes.
so that kind of needs to be talked about and straightened out. Representative Lappin discussed the oversight of the Ag Implementation Specialist position, whether who should be overseeing that. That was still under conversation. We meet December 13th at 9 a.m. at the Meadows. I would like to thank the committee. We've had kind of a busy year and kind of, I think, got quite a bit done, and I wish everybody a safe and happy holidays.
Any questions?
I just had a question related back to what Karen had said earlier about the Exeter station closing. I mean, that's on their own town, right? That's a town decision when they're closing that kind of recycling station component. Mm-hmm. So, and they're just notifying the county so the county's aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we list all the locations
On our website.
yes.
Yep.
Matter of fact, they let us know about 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, they did. We've had it for a while.
So this is kind of relevant to SWEC. Last week I went to Washington DC to attend the Chesapeake Bay Program's Local Government Advisory Committee meeting. New York State is part of the 6 states operating under the Chesapeake Bay total maximum daily load. From a local government perspective, they are looking for representatives from the state of New York. New York has been without representation on the committee for quite some time. The committee voted to ask Governor Cuomo to appoint me as their representative. And the reason this is important is because there are monies that are allocated to New York State every year to just under $1 million to help local governments like ours meet our obligations under the Chesapeake Bay program and the TMDL. And so I think it's critical that we advocate for some of that money to be allocated our way, because we are at the headwaters of the Bay region, and New York has been without representation from, and we have 6 seats at the table and haven't had anybody on it. So I think it's really important that we remain aware of this pot of money and maintain our involvement.
I think that's great. Hopefully, if there's anything we can do to help push that along.
That'd be great.
I have a question for you on that, Dan.
Sure.
So, is the recommendation just to fill one of the 6 seats
Yes.
for you, or 5 other people?
It's it's to fill my seat and then the 5 remaining ones. And I think there are a number of counties in the Bay watershed, but the fact that New York State doesn't have representation on that committee to express the challenges that we as local governments face in New York State, I think that's a major disservice to our constituents, and I think we need to fix it.
Is that would it be prudent or helpful, appropriate for the board to pass a resolution or to ask for me to write a letter to the governor endorsing your...
That would be very much appreciated, Ed. Very much.
May I make a motion from the floor that we do just that?
Second.
Oh, I was just gonna say, or we could do it at December 14th. We do have that second meeting. If we needed to craft something, that's all I'm saying.
It could just be a letter.
I think it's just a motion. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be a formal resolution, but maybe a motion of support.
Yeah.
Asking the chair.
Hey, you just picked up 14 references.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
You were missing Andrew.
So there's a motion of support for
I
the board,
have faith
for the
in
chair
you.
to write a letter and the board in support of Danny's appointment to that position. Take a voice vote. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved.
Wait, Danny, did you just vote for yourself?
No, I abstained. I abstained.
Well, if you don't think you can do a
Oh, you
good
did
job.
abstain, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Because you like me.
Okay.
Let's not push it.
Or pretend to.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. You said when your meeting was.
Yeah.
I have, going back a step, question for Kathy on, we now have 3 corners from relatively same area of the county, how they're going to distribute the call load.
That was an after discussion, but before we had talked about it, before the election, and it's basically, they don't, whoever takes the call takes it.
My understanding is that we were going to try to have them come up with
He
a
was hoping it
plan.
was going to be more equitable, but we don't have any control.
Right.
We invited all the coroners to come to the January meeting, and then, so we can talk to them about it at that point, so we can meet the new guys too.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
With the solar farm, it seems that what has been produced is nowhere near what we were promised when we first invested into that. Is it worthwhile to do some type of an independent audit to actually figure out what the thing is generating, what we're doing?
It probably would be feasible down the road, yes.
That seems to be, I'd like to make that suggestion.
Well, there seemed to be a plethora of issues where things weren't tracking, the automatic this, and then the
Well, why?
Agreed, so that's what I'm saying, I agree with the audit.
My understanding is, though, I've asked for how much credit we've gotten so far. We still have gotten 0, correct, Alan?
From what I've seen.
So even when it was working, we're not getting credit. And I think that really needs to be addressed. And we do have a contract. We have a contract. We should be expecting that.
Oh, they've been billing us for...
Yes, yeah, but they've been charging us for what we've generated.
We haven't been paying the bill, have we?
Credit, yeah.
No, we haven't.
Not a single credit yet.
So just so we're all clear, there's 2 issues. One is with the billing, and then the second issue is with the working of the panels. And so there's the arguments over credits in the billing, and then there's also the fact that the panels were offline for several months. So I think it'd be worth it to go back and look through the contract, see what was guaranteed to us, because if we are not getting what was promised, then in addition to the credits that we are due for the energy that was produced, we might need to take action about the contract that's not being fulfilled.
And
There's 2 things.
That's exactly why I think it should be an independent audit. I'm not sure that we should be doing it, then accuse anybody or do whatever. We have somebody from outside come in, look at everything, and make that determination. I don't trust whoever's supposed to be, I don't trust NICEAG telling us, I don't trust the installers of the program, of the system. Somebody independent should come in and look at it, I feel, and make a determination.
The other thing I can't believe, the system was down for a long period of time. I'm not sure of the exact time frame, but I can't believe that with the electronics capability today that there was some type of notification that the system is offline. I mean, when we lose a tower, we know it.
Anybody here, anybody anywhere has access to the that feed through the internet, and I'm wondering whether we knew for all of that time from the beginning that we were offline, or did it take us 2 months to find that out? And if it took us 2 months to find that out, that means no one was monitoring that feed that's available to everybody. And that's a problem, to start with us.
And somebody independent looking at that is going to be able to point fingers or say, this is a problem we need to address.
Yeah.
It can be addressed, how do we address it? So.
Doug needs to check
To
it
his
out.
point, though, we need to have somebody within this county assigned to monitoring it. We haven't gotten a credit since it went online, but that didn't seem to, nobody knew about it, and I don't see anything in the minutes where Doug came at any point in the summer, our peak period, and said, hey, guess what, we're offline. Immediately, but we're working on it. It was months before we discovered it, so that's a loophole we need to close.
Exactly.
Here's the feed right here.
Would you,
Well, that tells you if it's operating, but it doesn't tell you about if it's been billed, if we've got credit or any of that.
But if it's offline, I'm gonna have zeros here, and if I look at it every day, I'm gonna say, oh, 2 days with those, it wasn't that cloudy.
would you send that around to all of us? The
Yeah, I'm not sure if I just send you the website address that'll get it to you, but let me figure that out. Yeah,
if you would, thank you.
It's
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Admin, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. We met on November 26th, the Monday. We opened our meeting with a review of policies and the rules of order that we use to govern Otsego County and our proceedings as a body of representatives. The first half hour was dedicated to discussing the rules of order. And we did come up with points to consider and points that we will revisit, and we focused in on, one of the main things was calling the question, coincidentally, which we actually hardly ever do, but then we did a couple at our last meeting. So these are things that we haven't got it in its final integrated form that would be to amend, but we're working on that. And with regards to countywide policies, time did not allow for us to get into that, but hopefully we'll dedicate some more time at our next meeting and begin the process of kind of organizing the policies and where there's duplication and trying to get that into a workable sort of a document. Many of the other things that we addressed that day were addressed through committee reports, and you could read them in your minutes, but we did have the Department of Health, and we renewed the funding for the rabies program for 1/19 through 3/31/22. We approved the restructuring of the Codes Enforcement Office personnel with some additions and some, great, word just went away from me. When you take away a position and you abolish a position. Sorry. We abolished some and added some, and the restructure should allow for efficient operation of the Codes Enforcement Office. Among other things, we accepted a fuel bid for the Highway Department. We also approved the Sheriff's Jail Physician Services, which had previously mentioned, as well as some budget transfers for the Sheriff's Department. I do want to just call your attention to Resolution 328. That is the county insurance premiums with Rose and Kiernan and their representative Mike Hutcherson, just because it's something that you might not look at and notice. Just wanted you to see how many of them there are, and basically all of the things that are covered through this policy. We also approved funds for representatives to attend the NISAC conference, January 28th to 30th, and I would like at this point to encourage all of my colleagues to attend at some level of participation. It runs the 28th through the 30th, a Monday through Wednesday. Lots of presentations and opportunities to learn more about the issues that we are addressing in our meetings every month and day to day, with discussions throughout the entire county. We also approved the contract with Bernie Bus to operate the county public transportation system. And every time we talk about the county's public transportation system, I learn more, so it's always good to learn more. We transferred some budget lines with the Department of Social Services and renewed a number of contracts. With regards to personnel, and something that Ed had already mentioned, we did approve the reappointment of Art Klingler to the Emergency Services Coordinator position from January of 2019 through December of 2020. Similarly with Lori Landbauer as the Commissioner of Elections, Republican. We discussed the public defender's funding and positions, and we spent quite a bit of time discussing the local law for establishing salaries for appointed and elected officials. We also were very happy to talk with the Land Trust and discuss the Roses Hill property and options that might exist in that, with regards to that piece of property. And in Resolution 338, there you will see that we voted to allow for e-signatures, and also included in the resolution is the business analysis and risk assessment for accepting electronic signatures that we are borrowing and approving from Rensselaer County. So those are the high points of the administration meeting. Our next meeting is December 19th at 9 a.m. If you have any questions, I'll be happy.
Any questions? Okay, I just have one item that's, I guess, falls under admin, Board of Ethics. Kim Muller's one-year appointment expires at the end of this year. She contacted me earlier this week saying she does not want to continue in that role, so there's going to be a vacancy. If anybody has any suggestions, I'd be happy to accept. We currently have our municipal representative. We have one of each party, so the candidate could be of any party, but cannot have any municipal job. School, county, Otsego County, town, city, village, or school. And that's it for that, I guess. Special reports. I'm sorry, special committees first. And, go ahead.
The jury board, I got a notice of meeting on December 20th, 8:45 in the courthouse. Here in
December 20th.
December 20th? Yeah, at the grand jury room. If anybody wants to be there for 15 minutes.
Representative Marietta.
So, I guess a couple things. First of all, the Strategic and Technology Planning Committee, we did hold our meeting. The minutes, Alicia took the minutes and those were emailed out. Keith and I met with Dennis Clark and received, Dennis had put together a great kind of outline to plug right into the IGA committee work plan. Veterans Affairs is under that umbrella of IGA, so we're continuing to kind of move forward with, as Meg mentioned, continuing to try to finalize the IGA committee work plan overall. We had, I think, discovered during that discussion in IGA that there were a couple other things that we're going to add to the committee work plan, like publicity and promotions.
Right.
And if anyone looks at that chart in the other room, that's a bit faded. There's a number of things that under many of the committees that we may not necessarily see in the work plan, I think, but we're trying to make sure we cover all the bases, and I think between Keith and I gathering the input from Dennis Clark, and I have some feedback in terms of priorities that I was able to get from Michael Henrici and Lori Lenbauer at Board of Elections. So we're pretty close on being able to put a draft of the IGA committee work plan together that I hope to email to everybody this week. And then just like we did with Public Works and SWEC, right? IGA committee would review the work plan, which I assume we would do in December, and finalize it, and so we would have three committees done at this point. So, and I don't think we set another meeting because we had some trouble getting people there, so I'm hoping to see what availability is amongst Danny, Keith, Kathy, and Ed today to see what we could plan for a strategic plan. So we'll have to get that to Carol here shortly. And then I guess on the Otsego Now end, we did have a board meeting, I think just last week, or maybe, I'm sorry, it was the Thursday, I just want to double check that date. Yeah, it was last Thursday. We, at the board meeting, there were some resolutions, I mean, just kind of operational components, or operational issues the IDA is addressing. They have an approved budget, for 2019. I know that one of the issues that's come up in IGA committee, and that Otsego Now is having a meeting, I think this week, is the Codinum project, and making sure that the money that was allocated to Codinum by the county is utilized and addressed. And I think Otsego Now with Jody is been very. He's been informed. He's definitely aware that Karen Sullivan needs to know the status of that project. It is, for all purposes, from my understanding, being at the board meeting and from last week, that it is moving forward, and they're just getting together the partners that are associated with the Codinum project just to come up with the plan of how that is going to move forward, and how to kind of give that information to Karen, but also the New York State requirement piece to make sure we fulfill kind of those terms of showing that those funds are going to be allocated correctly. So that's, I guess, a loose end that we should see kind of finalized here this week, or maybe next week at the latest. But that meeting is happening and is between the partners. I've been forwarding the minutes and the information from Otsego Now. I mean, we heard from Jody last month. I don't think there's been much more development. I do know the decompression station hasn't been, at least recently, a very hot topic. I think it was discussed briefly at the board meeting. I think there's, just to kind of, nothing official that is in writing or anything, but I think Otsego Now is not building that decompression station, and I think there's a realization that that the chances of that decompression station being built are it's a steep hill to climb, and that I don't, not discounting the concerns from Otsego 2000 and others. I think that at the end of the day, that Otsego Now is not the agency that would ever be building that. They were just trying to be a partner in the process, and that there's some general realization that NYSEG is not jumping forward to build that station. So I think at the end of the day, what the likeliness of this project happening is definitely significantly in doubt. So I don't know if that gives, assurances to anyone who has concerns, but, I think this was a project that I think Otsego Now was trying to do their due diligence on and move forward. And, we have the Red Sea, the Regional Economic Development Council Award Ceremony coming up on December 18th. I don't know if anyone's attending that. It is possible that Otsego Now could be awarded that funding for that project. And at that point in time, Otsego Now would make the decision about what, if that project is even feasible to move forward on, and then, if it's dead in the water or not.
Any questions?
Anything happening with the land the IDA owns to the Richfield Sports?
Yeah, so, and that came up at the board meeting last week. I know Doug Zamanis, right? He's the attorney in Richfield Springs.
Yes.
He reached out to the legal representation for Otsego Now. We had, I guess there was some information that had been provided to them, and I guess the Otsego Now hadn't heard from them in a while, so communication just restarted, and that Doug and the attorney, I cannot remember his name for Otsego Now, we're gonna
Schulte?
Okay,
yeah, Kurt. We're going to have a phone call to discuss Doug's questions around the land usage. I think, they kind of went around in circles again, and I think, one of the ideas, I guess, that have been put out before was the consideration of the town possibly, town of Richfield Springs possibly taking that property. Like that seemed a cleaner way, that it could be transferred to the town, and then the town would be more involved with, kind of addressing what happens with that. That's what I took away from the board conversation, that Otsego Now there doesn't seem to be consensus from that board to give that property outright to that nonprofit organization. They would like to work through the local municipality, and they want the local municipality to kind of come to Otsego Now with some idea or proposal along those lines. Does that make sense?
No. They really gave proposals, but the last time it was discussed, which was over a year ago,
yeah,
they were talking about, the IDA was talking about, Otsego Now was talking about leasing them.
They were.
Because they leased the sports field
to the soccer, Oneonta Soccer Club. I think, and that still is quite a possibility. I think the problem was that if it wouldn't be a long-term lease. Oneonta Soccer Club only has, I think, a 5-year lease. And I think that was an issue with the Richfield Springs athletic group. I think that was the feedback from
the
Doug.
IDA owned that land for the last 20 years and haven't done anything with it, so it might be a long time lease.
I agree. Can I talk to you more about it?
Well, as long as there's something going on, because like I say, you say that the lawyer hadn't reached out to the IDA. Well, the IDA never reached out back to Richfield.
And that
either,
may
so.
be, the IDA has not contacted the municipality at all. So that there's a misconnection here that people are not connecting, and so the IDA is having these conversations and basically saying, well, we're not going to just give the property to the nonprofit organization. So I haven't heard an update on that phone call.
County does, like I hear people call this.
Yeah.
You gotta take care of those people.
Any other questions? Any other special committees wishing to report? Any questions? Yes.
The performance review and goal setting met right after the board meeting last month. This is the committee where most of the work of the embassy raises has been done over the years, and it's been many, many years it's been working on it. And I want to thank everybody who's been involved in that. Over the next 3 meetings, board meetings today and next week, and then the January meeting, we will be putting those pieces together. That's a one-time fix, though. And going forward, we're going to be making some long-term recommendations regarding salary adjustments on a regular basis each year, so that including merit-based components, and that conversation will be continuing through next year. However, next year we've spent most of our time on department head evaluations, and that's an every other year job of this committee, and it takes all year. So we had talked a little bit about scheduling those and so forth, and being as efficient as we can. We worked on, and will continue to work on, there's 2 personnel policies regarding the evaluation of employees that the committee is responsible for sending up to admin eventually. And we also talked about the outstanding employee. It's always very frustrating to get 5 or 6 or 7 applications for an outstanding employee by department heads or fellow employees. They're all really, really good, and we can pick 2. And so what happens to those other folks who don't get picked? And so we're still looking for ideas to be able to acknowledge really outstanding employees more than we do. So if you have any thoughts about that, let me know. And our next meeting will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Maybe could you elaborate a little on the salary study and the adjustments that were made?
The adjustment?
Well, there was some concern in the letter that we all received about the salary study and how it compared salaries from various counties.
Oh, yeah, there were lots of inaccuracies in that letter that we all received.
Maybe just want to address that particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, how...
Yes, I think the point that was made a number of times was the fact that we should be going further into understanding what the responsibilities and of each position were, and the job descriptions, and the point is that we did. And I don't even want to say we. Betty and her department went into that. I mean, I was thinking about this morning. My profession is in social science. I'm a social scientist. And so I spent a career working on this kind of data gathering. And there are good ways to gather data, and there are, kind of shoddy ways to gather data. And this was a good way. I think the personnel department went further down the road toward making sure that every comparative position was as close to equivalent as possible, and then you could go. It's a kind of thing where the further you go, the less you get out of it, so you've got to stop somewhere. You can't go 100% because you're not getting hardly anything out of it for the last few steps, and I think they went a lot further than is normally gone in this kind of survey. So I'm very, very confident that when we're comparing our position to a set of positions in other counties, that those are equivalent as we can find out about them. So that was actually really pretty important to me, and a great job was done. So thank you again, Penny, and your crew. Anything else?
No, that kind of covers it.
Okay, good.
Those kind of adjustments for responsibilities and for differences in payroll contributions or for health insurance hours, things like that, were all taken into account.
Yes, exactly. We call what we used was the adjusted min-max, and adjust for all of the data we had, and the adjusted part adjusts for the fact that we have employees.
That it will address some of the things that you're talking about. The comparative counties chosen to participate in the M&C compensation and benefits study were selected based on similarity to Otsego County in population, per capita income, location, either contiguous or upstate New York counties. We then looked at the number of full-time employees in the department, and then we compared compensable factors such as knowledge, education, certifications, equivalent training, work experience, and specialized skills required to perform the essential duties of the position. So this was done by reviewing positions in terms of civil service requirements, which reflect the minimum level of education, number of years of experience required to do each position. So some of the same titles across the comparison counties may have varied duties and responsibilities, but require the same level of compensable factors. So we try to obtain what I call position equity, both inside and outside of the county when reviewing these factors. So although there are position differences in terms of specific job duties, the minimum requirements and essential job functions were similar enough to be able to make these comparisons between titles. We looked at 2017 and 18 salaries of the comparison counties. Otsego County salaries, with few exceptions, were the lowest. So did we actually factor in the fact that we pay less for health insurance? Not in a measurable way, other than in keeping the lower salaries, which Otsego County would have been the outliers. We kept them in, and I felt like that gave some balance to it. Otsego County was kept in the average when calculating average adjusted minimum salaries. We removed outliers from the adjusted maximum average salaries for each position where it was appropriate. We combined adjusted minimum and maximum salaries and created a minimum maximum average, which was used in creating the proposed 2019 salary schedule. M&C employees have left for a variety of factors, including retirement and resignation due to low salaries. We do experience recruitment difficulties when advertising M&C positions due to low salaries, no scheduled cost of living increases, merit increases, etc., and that is supported by the fact that we've had 4 recent department heads leave, meaning within the last 2 years. And the positions were filled at salary increases of 39.49%, 10.47%, 5.52%, and 29.12%. Other M&C salaries were placed at increases varying from 12.5% to 35%. These adjustments were needed to fill the positions. So these are not, salary hikes. These are adjustments that were needed to fill the positions. Otsego County M&C employees are one of 2 counties contributing to health insurance at a rate of 5% to address the health insurance. 14 other counties contributed a rate of 10 to 20%. 1 county has a contribution rate of 30%, and that was the outlier in almost every title. So that would be Livingston County. So we got rid of all the outliers. So they are paying a crazy amount toward health insurance. They have crazy salaries over there too. So I mean, that just to give you some idea of background of the study and what was considered for this study. The Keeter letter was very offensive because he said the supposed this and the alleged that. It was a very emotional letter. He clearly has a lot of axes to grind with everyone here in this room and then some. So, I mean, if people have questions outside of the response here, I don't know whether it's appropriate to respond in a paper, but at least this way you know that it was done appropriately and everything that we could possibly take into consideration was taken into consideration. For $90,000 or $80,000 or $60,000 or whatever thousands of dollars, we might have been able to have a SWAT team come in and spend the same amount of time that we did and be able to go through every county and delve into things deeper than we can, but I feel very comfortable in the figures that we came up with. I mean, whether what we can fit it into the budget is outside of the purview of my department, but I feel very comfortable in the figures and the proposed salaries that we've recommended to the Treasurer's Department. Any questions, Kathy?
I'd just like to ask that the stuff that you gave me that you shared with the other members of the board, that's information that you gathered on so that they can, if they meet Mr. Cater, inform him of things we already looked at.
Right, I have 15 copies for everyone here of what you've got here, those 2, of proposed increases based on salary from highest to lowest and proposed increases based on percentage of highest to lowest. So I have those 4 pages that I can, put together for all of you for your review. It's information that everyone has seen or been discussed at one point in time, but it's all in one place and not online, and it's in a hard copy, and I'd be happy to give that all to you in a few minutes after I just assemble it.
And I think those of us on the committee know how hard Penny worked on it, and she would call back if something looked out of line. She actually called the counties and got further information on it, so it wasn't just here's what they sent me kind of thing.
Thank you, Penny.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay, so special reports. In your agenda packet, there was a copy of the consolidated health petitions and the total election expense. Any questions on those? Comments? We probably should take a short break before we get into the consent agenda. So we convene at
Oh, absolutely.
First time to set up one of those forms, and I said to him, well, you need to go up.
No, it was thorough. It was like a big street.
Never gonna fill that. I mean,
And that kind of adds a little lemon tea to it, so that I'll break it up a little bit.
What have you got this year? They made so much money, they should be happy about that.
Bringing up Otsego?
No.
Why? I said so. Said you were gonna. No.
You blew it. You had the opportunity, you know.
Did you catch anything yet, Keith?
Oh, yeah, I didn't send it over to you because you said I had to do this.
Go freaking any deer.
All right, we're gonna have to educate Danny here. You don't catch him.
Did you say catch?
He said catch any deer. Yeah, I'm out there fishing for deer.
Yeah.
You're not trapped here, Danny.
I corralled one, let's put it that way. That's better, right? I corralled one. I had her surrounded. Why, you need some medicine?
You got extra to give.
Actually, you put it.
I'll buy some.
You must have captured it before today.
Are these those changes that we talked about?
If there's any, I'll answer any questions. These are all the amendments.
So, you've been hunting for long or what?
Never hunted. I'm a fisherman.
Good change?
Why don't you leave one on his list, because
That change? Yeah, I also need, sadly, my backyard.
this Oklahoma, law, which is not a whole lot of people. This is the one that has a dark story.
I will have to take any medicines.
I'm sorry, then we have to set the date for that.
Drive around and pick up a rope.
We're lost page. The special reports, consolidated health petitions, and total election expense. We do need a motion and a second to approve those.
So motion?
Motion, second. Any more discussion?
I didn't hear a second, sorry.
It was Pete.
Pete seconded.
Speech.
Oh.
It's about 340.
Okay, it's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? One absent. Motion carried. Okay, we need a motion to dispense with the reading of all reports and resolutions. Second.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Carried. Is there any representative wishing to remove a resolution from the consent agenda? I'd like to remove the budget, resolution 322 and 323, which relates to the budget. Anyone else?
We're replacing current local law with this one.
That's later. I believe, right? That's up to.
Yes. Yeah.
Anything else wishing to be removed? Okay, call for action on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel? Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Poatnick?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
5,705 ayes, 0 noes, 523 absent. Consent agenda is passed. Okay, resolution 322.
Resolution 322, adopting Otsego County budget for 2019. Kennedy, Overacker, Frazier, Poatnick, Stammel, McCarty.
Second. Discussion. I pulled it because at our last budget workshop, we heard from the treasurer and the committee, the workshop agreed to make a few changes. Treasurer would like to explain those quickly.
Yep, I'll go through these changes that are right underneath here. So the first change is the solid waste contracts line. So when we budgeted that with the tentative budget, we budgeted a worst case scenario because the vote on the tipping fee and the recycle, the other stuff didn't come till November 6th. Oh, yeah. It didn't come till November 16th. So we just wanted to budget the worst case scenario, and in SWEC they voted for the best case scenario, so we didn't need that extra funding in there. The next thing are 4 positions in the Department of Social Services. So those positions were budgeted, and then the salary study was looked at even further with the Commissioner of DSS. Everyone agreed that there were certain positions that were in there that did not correlate exactly to those positions, so those positions all are going to be reduced slightly to be based on what is in the salary study. The next one, for the district attorneys, again with the salary study, some of those salaries that were in the salary study, when Penny followed up, were full-time assistant district attorneys. Our district attorneys, our assistant district attorneys are part-time. So there are some of those salaries that had to come out to match the salary study. Again, as all you can see, the time and effort that Penny put into this was crazy. The next line, welfare fraud investigator. So upon further looking at the salary study, came back and showed that the welfare fraud investigator should be making, I believe it's like $35,994 according to the salary study, but our 3 welfare fraud investigators are all retired and are collecting a pension from New York State, and they cannot make more than $30,000, otherwise their pension is in jeopardy. So we are, those 2 salaries are removing, bringing them down to $30,000 even.
Would say you are agree.
Yes, they did, because they don't want their pensions to be in jeopardy as well.
And they wouldn't qualify for 211, the waiver, because of the fact that we would have to advertise and show after advertising for the position for a period of time we were unable to fill the positions, which is not the situation. There are certain criteria you have to meet in order to get a 211 waiver. So they agreed to stay at the 30,000 so that we wouldn't have to apply for them.
Yeah, make sure you stay there, Penny, just in case. So the next position, the family court public defender position, there was a range, and it was budgeted at $67,000, and then in admin, when it came in, it was then approved at $70,000. So we have to add the $3,000 in there to make that to the approval amount of $70,000. The minus $4, what happened is the salary study showed that the public defender should be making $87,004. However, advertising an $87,004 position might be a little awkward, so we're taking the $4 and just making it $87,000. I don't think anyone's going to complain about that. The next two, in the Board of Elections, they're looking to add 2 deputies to the Board of Elections. So there will be deputies, there will be the 2, I think they're called directors, whatever they're called, yep, commissioners, and then there'll be 2 deputies when those commissioners are out. I'm not sure the whole line, but when those commissioners are out, they do need people to sign certain things and be there. So hence, they would need the deputies. So that's adding 2 deputies. The next one in the codes department. So it's in your approval earlier, and Tony is here to answer any questions, but he is doing a restructure of his codes department, and that is going to decrease the budget $21,293. The next one, there is one assistant public defender in there that was vacant. So when we were putting in the salary studies, we did not catch a vacant position. So that is still budgeted at the old amount prior to what the salary study showed. So we do have to pull that third one up to match the salary study and the rest of them. It was vacant, and we did miss that because they did not have a name tied to it. The planner trainee, so that was actually approved in the September, it was approved at the September board. We just did not get that into the budget. It was in all of our notes, we just did not get that in, and that was a fault on me and my department, so I'll take that. That was not in there, but it should have been. So that number, $42,330, is budgeted at the highest amount, because we like to budget at the highest amount that someone could come in. There is a range, but I don't want to budget the lowest amount that someone come in higher and we're already at a deficit. The next thing, the supervising social worker increase, that was the same thing. There's one of them, I believe, and the other one was vacant. And again, we did not pick it up. We did not increase the salary to match the salary study because it was vacant. We did not catch that. The next one is in real property. So that is a decrease. That shows the unfunding of 2 real property information specialists and adding a principal account clerk typist, which would be to overtake the burden of the tax billing, and adding a $5,000 stipend for a deputy to be named by the director. And the last thing that no one was aware of, because it was not in the budget workshop, and I apologize for this, when we were trying to go through and double check everything, we missed one person's longevity. So that was, again, our fault, and it was not brought up in the budget workshop we found a few days ago, so that is just adding $750 to a person's longevity that deserves it because they've been here that long. We just failed to input it. So I will answer any specific questions, or the departments will answer any specific questions if anyone has.
Change the budget with those is?
Yep, so if all of those are voted on as is, it will decrease the budget $79,323 if they're voted as is.
Any questions? Comments? Do we need to vote on each one of those individually, or can we vote on it as a package?
You can vote on it as a package, and if someone wishes to split one or all of them into individual parts, you can do that. So you might want to start with someone moving.
I'll make a motion, we vote as a package.
Second. Any discussion?
So we have a question on something we ask now, or do we ask to move something?
Either or.
Yeah, either or. And
Question first, I would think, and then maybe based on the answer.
I made a statement at admin that just a few years ago, the election commissioners, chair people, came to us and said, we're part-time, we don't do any of the work, the deputies do it, we should put them into the chairman role. Henry and Sheila, Hank and Sheila, and okay, that's fine. Now we're going to put in full-time deputies. It just seems we're chasing our tail. We abolished those positions. Now we have to have them. I'm not sure why we have to have them when we didn't have them for 2 years. So How do we operate for 2 years legally if you're telling me now we have to have these in case they're out? And that's, so.
My only, I'm speculating now, but one of them did have a health issue that required him to be out for a significant amount of time, and that may have brought to attention the need to have a deputy available to sign.
So this is not hiring 2 new people, this is giving the deputy title to 2 people that are already in there, right?
Correct.
Like giving them stipend for
Yes.
$500.
That's correct.
I think they wanted to hire 2, and they were abolishing and unfunding 2 election commissioner positions. So they're unfunding 2 positions, and they're adding 2 deputy positions.
That's not on here, though. There's nothing about unfunded.
No, that's included in that number. That number includes the abolishing of 2 and adding 2.
That was my recollection, the net difference in total people.
No, they're-
The titles are different, but net number of people.
What Dave said.
I
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I just had gone and talked with them related to the strategic planning committee, and they had reiterated, you know, this, and again, my understanding is that they're abolishing these positions, but they're not hiring 2 new people. It's 2 people within the current staff who would be out, you know, identified now as deputies. And what, you know, what, to your point, what they were saying is that if, you know, if they're sick or not able to be there, that the business of the Board of Elections cannot really happen. And what I didn't realize is what they also had related is that, you know, with the county employees, they have earned vacation time, and that they have their own challenge of even using their own vacation, and that the county buys back a good portion of their vacation every year because they can't even utilize it. So I mean, I guess that you know, part of this is just trying to improve the operations, but also almost like kind of a backup plan if one of them is not there. Because I know, like Michael, for example, I know he has a vacation coming up, and as you said, you know, if somebody is sick, then that office is somewhat at a complete standstill if the deputies are not there.
Okay, so I'm looking at this document from the Board of Elections, and I'd like you to identify which 2 we're abolishing, because there's 2 that are vacant, but they don't have any funding in this document at all.
Yep, it's going to be the 2 election clerks.
So we're unfunding.
We voted on this in IGA.
Christine Marson.
Or is it?
They're still there.
Or is it the election specialist? Maybe it's the election specialist.
Names are on this document.
Was it October?
They're not anywhere.
Right, so we're not really abolishing.
Well, no, you're not, because they knew who to create the deputy. So they're gonna stay there, they're just gonna have a deputy title.
So
It's a title.
the committee has created 2 new positions, and it just
So in other words, they're not going to be
reflected in the budget.
clerks, they're going to be deputies.
Right.
But has that been done in committee or
That's
through
what
the
we're
process?
talking about doing right now.
We did that.
Take that out.
IGA.
Separately from all this, because there's nothing in there that says
I'm looking.
August or September.
Well, it wouldn't be done till the budget is approved anyway, because they wouldn't have the money to do it.
Right.
So it'll be done in January. They're right?
The budget creates that. You know, if we create a position in the budget, as you have pointed out several times, then that's the process. We've created that new position in the budget. And if the budget doesn't have those other positions, it's been
Well, what would happen is if you're putting the money in there to create these positions, if it's not approved, then the money just sits there.
Some positions still sit there, as they were.
No, they stay the same, but the money was just not.
Maybe that's...
But you have to have the money to do the position. Right?
So, Nora, I don't know if this helps, but Nora, there's like a process you have to create, fund, and fill. Right. So, whichever one you're going to do today, if you create it and fund it today, you still haven't authorized filling it, and so you could hold off on filling it until the committee meets, and then you would abolish the one that you're not going to be using.
But if you haven't created the funding, then you have to steal it from somewhere else.
And you can't abolish it if somebody's at that job today working at it.
Don't say steal when we're talking budget.
I know, but not TV. All right, you have to take it from somewhere else. We're trying to be proactive and plan ahead for it.
We also had adjusted the poll, I forget what the terminology is, but the poll workers, they're inspectors. You know, their salaries were also tied, and I know it came to IGA, and I don't know that there was a formal resolution, but okay, and that's what I was just looking through the minutes. I mean, we did approve the adjustment to the on-site poll inspectors, and I think that we also had approved this deputy component as well. It came through IGA is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
So Ellen, you increased that, what he's talking about, the election
Penny
workers?
just walked out with the thing, she's calling out, but she said the same thing, yes, that she saw it and it went through, but it's gotta get into the budget, that's why it has to get into the budget.
But currently, as the budget stands, the election workers, that they increased the salary, you already knew about that, that's already there.
Yes.
But the deputy position that you said was created at the same time isn't in there, and we're adding it now.
The deputy, yep, with this, if it votes, it will unfund the 2 positions and then fund deputies.
They're still there, they're just unfunded.
Yeah.
And they would have to be funded by the committee in the future. Or...
Well, I think they're going to change the titles on these, not election clerks anymore.
Any other questions? So we have a motion and a second, vote on them. Go ahead.
Can I pull that out?
Yes, you can ask.
Can I pull it out, or who made the motion to pull those?
No, you can actually ask
don't we
the
have to-
chair to
You either have to,
divide the
I would think
question.
we'd have to vote on the motion that's out there, wouldn't we? We have a motion and a second, or it would have to be withdrawn or voted on, I think.
We're amending the motion?
Well, yes, but the chair can, they call divide the question? Like if there is a multi-part motion, someone can ask you to take out part of it and vote on that separately, and that's up to you.
I would suggest...
I made the motion.
I would suggest that maybe withdraw the motion and start
I'll withdraw
over.
my motion.
Okay. Second?
No, it's carried.
Yes, I withdraw my second.
Okay. So now I would entertain a motion to act on all of them as a package except for the Board of
I'll make
Elections
that motion.
line.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion there? Okay, roll call vote on all the amendments except Board of Elections.
Sorry, I just want to get this straight.
Go to the video.
Frazier.
Aye.
Farwell. Aye. Clark. Aye. Stammel. Kennedy.
Aye.
Overacker.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Koenig.
Aye.
Martini. Aye. Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
5,705 ayes, 0 noes, 523 absent. Resolution 322A is passed.
No, not.
Just on the single issue. Okay, motion on the single issue of the Board of Elections change.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, second?
Or motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
We're waiting for more information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're waiting. The exact information that's needed.
I think the question is the positions, right? Is that the question? What we're abolishing. I don't know, I'm asking.
we do have. Penny is calling the Board of Elections right now to try and find some clarification.
So we're waiting for Alan and Penny.
Yeah, your question. Why is it weren't
I object to this on principle that a couple years ago, the commissioners were here and said, we don't need the jobs, you don't need deputies and commissioners. Elevate the deputies to the full-time commissioners and everything's good. Now, 2 years later, we're here and they say we have to have deputies. What is it? Do we have to have them or not? Because it doesn't make sense. So,
I just want to clarify, I spoke to Lori, it is the election clerk, she's unfunding, and the people in those positions she wants to elevate to the deputy. So unfund those, create two deputies, the people aren't losing their jobs, or just being put in. That's exactly what Lori told
No, so one's gone, one commissioner's gone, the other commissioner.
And the deputy, and the commissioner's not there. I mean, that's the case in a number of different departments.
So you have
Somebody signed.
I'm not sure things happen in that. So Mike and Lori's positions that they left as deputies were not filled. They were abolished, okay? That's not an accident. That's not an oversight that nobody was put into those positions. That was on purpose, right? We must have done that on purpose.
What year was that? That was prior to my time, I believe.
It was 2-3 years ago. So I just, if they needed those deputies, they should have put somebody in there then.
I think maybe they didn't really realize it until they actually got into the job. And like, I mean, these examples, health issues or vacation, they can't leave without having somebody in the seat to do it.
What's the difference in the pay, Alan?
But I'm questioning, the two of them were sitting in those deputy positions for years.
Yeah,
They must have understood the requirements of a deputy position. They were sitting in those positions. They got elevated to the commissioners. How do we go 2 years later and say, now we have to have these deputies?
Sometimes it's different when you're really in charge and you realize how things really go.
The difference is 2,150 per position. So as a deputy, they should have be able to do more duties than they could as an election clerk. So I mean, there are more responsibilities that they'll have as a deputy.
$5,000 more for both positions.
Well, it's 2,150, I think, per position, but because they're going from well, they're not even CSEA, but they're a non-union position, a non-manager position, they'd be going to a management position, so would be going from their contribution rate of 20%, I believe is what they're doing, to a contribution rate of 5%. So that's where the other part is coming in.
I mean, if you want it broken down, it's going to be $4,300 increase in salaries, $6,959 increase in fringe benefits and things like that.
$10,000.
Yeah. So the total, like I said, that's on your sheet should read $11,259.
Shouldn't have been allowed.
Commissioner and deputy, do they have set hours, or do they just?
That's the welfare. These are full-time. That's the welfare. Whereas before, that one was not.
Yep. In IGA August 14th meeting, the minutes, Andrew has them pulled up on his computer screen here, reflect that Lori came into the IGA committee and presented the option, the information on changing the positions and abolishing the clerk and turning it into a deputy. And during the meeting, the IGA committee agreed that this was a change that we approved, and the details, I'm not remembering why we decided, but Lori presented the case for it, and we thought that it was the right thing to do in August to essentially just rename the positions as deputies rather than clerks. And I know that it at the same time brought some equity into the salaries with the clerks and the techs who service the voting machines as well. So I don't want to go too far off the rails, But I do think that it did bring the whole department into a more equitable position salary-wise.
Just a question though, if this all happened in August, why is it now being added to the budget after the tentative budget has been filed?
I probably would have to say that
Lori
at
to you
some
earlier.
point, someone
There was,
missed
but the
it.
budget committee didn't vote to necessarily put it in until we had met with the full.
This was not in Lori's preliminary budget.
It was not in her.
It was not in her, it was not in Lori's preliminary budget. By the time Lori went there, Lori, it just, this is where the committee system gets, it went from her committee, but it did not make it to the budget committee. So there was a disconnect between IGA to the budget committee. They never, there was no talking ever in between. So by the time we found out the tenant had already been filed, Laura's like, oh, well, I went to IGA back when. Well, did you take it any further? It didn't go, any further from there.
Any further discussion? Yes.
Back when this other happened, I don't know if we had the new voting machines or not, but with those voting machines, I think they got to be serviced a lot more, and there's possibly that a person, even a commissioner or a deputy, has to be present when they work on the machine. I don't know, but there might be more of a call for a deputy or somebody with the authority than was before.
And then if I can just try to add to my memory of what happened at our August IGA meeting, Lori came in and she had a chart of a list of counties and how they handle the deputy position and what they're paid, etc. And that, her recommendation was based on doing research about counties in similar situations. And that was part of her rationale for why it was a good idea for the county to do that.
But we can't just deputize as we do in other departments, $5,000 stipend without abolishing, creating, adding additional raises, changing a contribution to healthcare.
Well, I think, I may be, correct me if I'm wrong, but the deputy has an authority to sign papers where somebody just given a stipend would not have that authority. You have to have the title, it's the deputy, to have the authority to sign documents.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think that if you have a stipend for deputy, you function as a deputy. And that can be, that's paid generally across the board through the whole year. The Department of Social Services has one person as under a deputy stipend. They've had two in the past. And that person functions as a deputy year-round for the $5,000 stipend.
So if that's the case, then maybe we can do it that way. Yes.
I think the committee in August, when we did discuss this, found Lori's proposal to be the best way forward. At the time, no one presented us with, Lori didn't say you can do this or you can give a stipend. And, not everyone has enough, I'll just say, experience throughout, to be able to just think, oh, why don't we do a stipend? So that didn't pop into my head. But as a committee member who was sitting there listening to her presentation, for all of the reasons that she put forward, it seemed like it was the most reasonable way to proceed to create the deputy positions and then eventually have the clerk's positions be abolished. So we didn't go down the alternative that Kathy put forth. We did do this, and I feel that we should stick with the original committee's decision. We did hear the presentation, and we, at the time, even though it was quite a few months ago, felt that that was the best way to proceed, and I would ask that we respect that decision and not change it at today's meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept it as it was written. We've had any more discussion? And a second. We're ready to vote on that motion. 322B.
Fraser?
No.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? No. Stammel? Kennedy?
Yes.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Kootnick?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
4,712 ayes, 993 noes, 523 absent. Resolution 322B. I think that's it. The entire one. Okay. So we need to amend now 322.
That's what he said.
So moved. Second?
Okay? Any discussion?
Are we done with budget?
No, this is those amendments that we just made, not the whole thing.
No.
Unless you have more amendments, unless you
That's what I'm
I'm sorry,
I would like to
This is the
propose
time
a
to do
different
it.
amendment than that's before.
Correct.
There are salary changes for a lot of people in this budget, including the reps. And I believe that I always have hesitated to vote myself any type of an increase till everyone else is taken care of. I believe now is the time for this board to lead. I believe that we've had conversations in the past regarding health insurance, and I believe I would like to propose today that the board reps double the cost of their health insurance. We have moved in negotiations, all of the unions on the upward trend. I don't have any idea how long our contribution has been where it is, but I believe that we should lead on this, and I would like to propose to double the cost of the board reps' health insurance.
Second.
Any discussion?
What percentage does that range to?
10%.
How does that affect other M&C? Can we remove the board from the M&C?
It has nothing to do, my proposal has nothing to do with anything else.
Is that something we can do as well as?
Okay, and we can do it simply by a motion and a second, and a vote. Okay. But it was harder than that.
So did I didn't talk to Alan, I didn't want to hear it on a couple parts, so, okay.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to you know, for the county board of representatives to, you know, I mean, I think in general that, you know, when I was on the school board, I mean, you know, there's this constant push to try to get the employees to help kind of share some of that cost burden, because health insurance continues to go up every single year. And it's not that 5% you're not seeing some of that cost increase because the premium's going up and your cost share of it at 5% is going to go up, but I think 10% is still very reasonable in the scope of, you know, companies, for-profit and non-profit across our region. I think it's a very reasonable proposal.
I think 10% is more than reasonable, and it was something that I had talked to Alan about earlier this year, so I would support that.
Kind of awkward for me because I don't pay it, but so depending on how the board votes, I'm either going to support it or abstain.
I guess I have a question. This doesn't affect former board members, does it, or does it?
That depends on how it's worded, I assume, right? It shouldn't, in my opinion.
That was not my intent.
I know, but I'm just asking.
Yeah, I think we would have to make that clear, and I think that
Sitting board members.
well, I think it would be extremely unfair to do anything retroactive.
Yeah, well, that's,
Thanks for asking, because I did not.
well, that, you know, I wouldn't support it if it did. I mean, if we need to amend that resolution to say that,
I would suggest that we
Sitting board members.
go from this date forward.
I'll second this, whatever you just mentioned.
I would just say that my personal opinion is the differential between M&C and employees is a problem. I'd rather see the 20% come down rather than go up, but in the absence of that happening, I would support this as well. So we need to either withdraw or amend your resolution to reflect that it's not going to be retroactive.
Whatever you need to. I don't want it retroactive, I want it sitting board members and going forward. So, like he said, he would second that.
Any further discussion? So this would be 322C. Roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel? Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin? Shannon?
Aye.
5,705 ayes, 0 noes, 523 absent. Resolution 322C passes. Any other amendments? So now we'll vote on Resolution 322, the budget as amended. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel? Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty? Wilbur? Koenig? Martini? Lappin? Shannon?
Aye.
5,705 ayes, 0 noes, 523 absent. Resolution 322 is passed.
Resolution 323, making appropriations for conduct of Otsego County government for the year 2019. Kennedy, Overacker, Frazier, Koenig, Stammel, McCarty.
Second?
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? This is a resolution that actually funds the budget. Motion, roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel? Kennedy?
Yes.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin? Shannon?
Aye.
5,705 ayes, 0 noes, 523 absent. Resolution 323 passes. Okay. Local law number 1 of 2018. Aye, I'm sorry. Aye.
Yes, with the eye.
Thank you.
Yes.
So you have a new local law number I on your desk. As you can see, there's changes in the tentative budget to what was finally authorized. And the one in your packet actually contained a somewhat greater salary for sections 1, 3, 4, 5, 11, and 12. So the one that was just handed out to you now corrects those sections, but in all cases, it decreases the salary. And it's not by much. It's, $652 and $580, that kind of thing. It was just when the tentative budget finally came through, we somehow had the older numbers and not the newer ones.
Okay, did I call for a second?
Oh, no.
So we need a second.
Is this the first reading?
This is the first reading, yes.
So we have to vote on it?
No.
No, not.
All we need is a second, and then hold it.
Okay, second, yeah, okay.
Now we hold it over for a public hearing, which will happen on Friday, December 14th, when we have our second full board meeting of the board. There'll be a public hearing prior to that. 9:45, December 14th. Yes.
And when's the actual vote of approval of the local law after that hearing?
It could be in that meeting.
It could be at the December 14th meeting?
Right.
Okay.
That's the plan.
That's what I thought, okay.
Anything else? Any late business? Adjourn until December 14th. Thank you all for your work on the budget. It's good.
I think on behalf of all in the team, thank you guys. Thanks for it down there.
Thank you, Alan.
Yes.
I think a lot of people are happy.
I think you don't want stickers though, don't you?
We just need to make sure we have enough people here
Yeah.
to, because you're,
Yeah.